All right, guys. We're gonna do the Christmas edition of our podcast here.
Ho, ho,
Probably,
ho.
yeah, we got the beards for the Christmas season going. This is all I can grow. Um, my cousin Colin won't be with us tonight. He's had a loss in his family again, so keep him in your prayers, and hopefully he gets through that. Um, we also we have a very genuine fill-in. We have my good friend Jason Anderson. I looked at it. I actually kept my first pay stub from this man. It's been 26 years of friendship.
Wow.
So,
Kept it
yeah.
Was that
friend.
So,
after the last paycheck or was that during the paychecks?
well, it's kind of hard because you kind of decide which first paycheck do you go off of because he hired me twice. So,
And he fired you twice.
We won't talk about that.
Nope. Yeah, we'll
um,
let you do that in therapy.
well, yeah, there was a lot of therapy after that. But no,
Well, welcome, Jason.
yeah,
Thank you.
welcome back.
Yeah.
One of our highest rated podcasts that we did was with Jason. A lot of good clips came out of it, so we decided to have him back. If you guys get a chance, we've also started some business endeavors. We got some t-shirts going. The link will be down in the bottom. We incorporated our production company last week. So,
Oh,
and then we also have a Patreon that's down there. Hopefully we can get some subscribers. Kind of doing this because my youngest daughter was diagnosed with autism. So kind of need to stay closer to home and not go back out on the road. We'll see what path God takes me down with this. Maybe it's not meant to be, but we'll see where we go. You can only leave it to one person to decide. So just trying to do good work. So, but let's see. What were some of the topics we wanted to talk about? What was it you want to talk about, Jason? You wanted to,
well, right now the biggest thing on everybody's mind with Christmas and everything going on is pretty much the economy and why we have two sides of the country right now. And if you watch, depending on what news station you watch, the economy is either doing great or it's ready to collapse. So I wanted to talk about some of the myths that are running around, some of the things that people are saying that just aren't true, and just a reality, truthful. What is your pocketbook feel like? Are you feeling it?
well,
I'm in
well, I,
California, so you can guess on my side.
well, it's the first time I bought eggs for under $3 a dozen, or 18 pack this week.
Mhm.
And then a lot of things have gone down, especially gas. I think we saw gas at 206 here a gallon.
Yeah, you were messaging some pictures of some gas rates, and I was just 212 or something like that was your lowest in your
Yeah.
area.
Yeah,
Oh,
That's
it's
did you
like two.
did you send him the pic that I sent you of gas and diesel? So
Oh
on
yeah.
Saturday, we were talking, and I was walking by our local neighbor Walmart marketplace. They had 248 for both gas and diesel.
wow.
Yeah, that
Wow.
changed, of course.
Diesel
The
hasn't
diesel
been
went
less
back
than
up.
gas in years. Diesel used to be cheaper than gas
Hmm.
for years. It was like that, but then they kind of got savvy. And they said, we can uh, we can jack it up, and they started taking stuff out of diesel and putting some restrictions on it. It shot the price up.
Yep.
Well,
So,
they had to. Diesel is basically kerosene, and when they basically had because when they break the fuel, so ever see a refiner has that tower that goes up in the air. When they break the fuel, so they boil the crude and they break it and they turn it into vapor and different
correct.
weights. Yeah, they crack it. And as it goes up, they suck off the weight of the vapor of that area. And it's a lower fuel on the height. Literally, it's a lower fuel source. It's a lot easier to break. But then they have to take it and break it again to remove the sulfur and all the other undesirables.
You put through
But
scrubbers and yeah. I knew a lady who was a client of mine, and she worked for a company that worked for the refineries, and their job was to reduce the um, reduce the heavy metals and all the stuff that was in fuel, diesel fuel. And so they said, well, you got to remove, the heavy metals. You got to remove this. You got to, and so she was an engineer, so that's what she designed. She designed all the scrubbers and did all the, crazy stuff that they requested. And then they came in and they said, well, you remove the sulfur, you remove the heavy metals, everything's clean now, but we want you to remove the CO2. Yeah. And she was like, could you maybe go back to school? You can't remove the CO2 from a combustible hydrocarbon. That's just what you get when you come out with it. And they said, well, until you can do that, we're going to put these, restrictions on your stuff. And so she ended up saying, well, it's time for me to get out of the business. So she ended up moving out of the state and worked for another company. But, California for years has been really, um, people say crazy, and I'd like to agree with it, but I think crazy people do things randomly without any purpose, and they know what they're doing. They know why they're doing it. They just have trouble saying they don't want people to drive. They don't want people in their own vehicles. They really don't even want people in electric vehicles. They would love to have all public transportation, 15-minute cities, all these things, because it's much easier to manage you and control resources that way. And from their perspective, if you look at it from the perspective of a liberal Democrat, if you're taking care of people and you're kind of micromanaging their lives so that you can stretch resources as tightly as possible, it makes sense. But we're in America. We have freedoms. We want to do things our way,
We don't stay in
So
the box.
why would you ever think that Americans are going to want you to control every aspect of their life? If I wanted that, I'd go back and live with my parents, Uh, they're they're not alive anymore, but I mean, it's like that. Most people that don't live with their parents because they want some sort of autonomy and freedom, you know? So I think their heart's in the right place. I've talked to a lot of them, and the main misconception, especially with the air quality, is that if any car out there has any emissions, that the entire world's going to somehow come to a screeching halt. Zero emissions, their goals are admirable, but we don't need that. At what cost? We're destroying our economy, chasing after this phantom of zero emissions transportation, and
well,
we'll get there
the, the
eventually.
the problem we have is when we breathe out the same exhaust as the cars. We breathe out CO2.
They'll start taxing you.
Well,
Now,
here it
when
is.
you
When we're doing that, we are also not tying down China and all these other countries to do the same. So when we are making it so much greater here, other places are making it much, much worse. So there is no balance.
Yeah.
what I find interesting is I was looking at the statistics. When I was a kid in the 80s, when I was in the 90s, they had 40 fuel refineries in California, and now they have 7, and they're about ready to only have 5.
Yeah, they're shutting down 2, the Phillips 66 and the other one,
Valero
Valero. Yeah, Valero.
up in
Valero's
Bernacia.
done. I mean, every time they turn around, they're like, "Well, here we're going to slap you with some fines. We're going to," and they made it so difficult to do business in California. Energy is the main driving factor of all this. We're pushing $7, $8. We'll be at $10 once these refineries close per gallon, and that's unsustainable. People are going to. I mean, down in LA, you have to drive so far to get anything done. I live down there, and if you're going
Mm.
through a tank or 2 a week, that's you're going to be spending a house payment, you know.
Mhm.
an LA house payment on gas. So then they're going to start
Yeah.
all buying. They're going to go, okay, well, we'll buy your electric car. And then they're going to be like, well, we can't sustain electricity because we got to buy it from Texas and we got to buy electricity from overseas. And they cannot build enough uh, solar panels and windmills to replace what they're doing. So the funniest thing to me, and I'm laughing so far. And if you guys have any money to invest, laugh all the way to the bank because the Donald Trump Media Group just merged with TOE, which is a company that is in the forefront of creating nuclear fusion. So they've done it. They've created this controlled plasma fusion generator, and they're going to be able to pump out their first large upscale is going to be 50 gigawatts. I think it is not maybe gigawatts, megawatts, gigawatts. I'm thinking of Back to the Future.
Yeah, you're
Gigawatts.
talking about the plant they're building up in Wyoming.
Well, this is going to be insane. And so Donald Trump's media
Yeah.
company just put $6 billion and they merged this company. And so it's going to be safe. They're going to be fairly small reactors, as far as a footprint. It's not going to be like Diablo Canyon with, massive amounts of space and stuff because you're dealing with uh, um, uh, fission. So it's going to be insane because California is going to be begging for energy. I mean, we've got some of the
Yeah,
most energy
300.
you know, industries here in California. So
Not for
Or
very much
not.
longer.
yeah, maybe not. Maybe they'll move. Well,
I've
Tesla
been hearing.
moves.
I was hearing
Cisco.
about that nuclear fission back a couple of months ago. That there's an idea of each home built, starting a certain year, they'll start putting a small reactor into each one.
Yeah, I think they'll probably stop it at a city level. Maybe that'll get us because they're they're fairly complex, and I mean, you get the Back to the Future thing where you got the Mr. Fusion on the back of your car, and you just throw banana peels in it, and you have unlimited energy. I
Well,
think
I was
realistically, when they get them, they'll have to be some sort of regulatory, board over it, and so it'll probably maybe get down to municipality within cities. But even then, if you're producing enough energy to run a city off of something that's less than a city block, that's massive. That's incredible.
what's
And it'll be cheap energy, and that's what we need, cheap energy.
And then we
it'll
need
be
to start a
small too.
business of taking all those solar fields and stuff like that and removing them because that's going to happen too because they're going to go bad.
You just won't be getting the returns. So what'll happen is they'll use them until they stop working, and then they'll just, as the solar panels fail, they'll be too expensive to replace because, why replace a 25, watt or 250 watt, panel when, for $8,000 because they don't make them anymore when, you got this reactor that's creating massive amounts of energy.
Yeah.
And then for nuclear subs, it's going to be great because those things will be like suitcase sizes and
Well, they say right here that people are developing is called Idaho National Labs, and they say they're supposed to be the size of a shipping container, and it'll produce. I was reading about this a couple months ago, so I have it earmarked.
well, the
Glad you.
support stuff, the actual reactor is fairly small. So yeah, about the size of a shipping container. But the support stuff, you got computers that have to regulate the energy production and
Yeah,
distribution. It'll probably be fairly large. It's not
the
like you're
thing
gonna
I like,
walk in
the
with a
thing,
suitcase.
the thing that I like
That'd be
about it, because
cool.
I had
That'd be
That would
cool.
be a great selling point, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And you
Here, just
can
plug your stuff
carry it
into this
around.
suitcase.
It's like you're going to
Yeah.
work. Grandpa.
that puts a whole new concept on suitcase nukes, doesn't it? Yeah.
It would be the exact opposite. It wouldn't explode. It would just stop working. If something failed, because what it does, it creates a plasma charge, and that then fuses the whatever fuel they're using, which releases energy. Well, when you have a runaway thing, it you just stop the process, and it doesn't perpetuate itself like fission. Once they start the process, they have to do something to stop it. They have to pull the rods out. If the rods stay in contact, it just runs away. This is the exact opposite. If something goes wrong, it just stops working. Kind of like your engine. It's
I know what
if
that's
you
like.
run out of fuel, it just goes dead.
Yeah, Corey.
Blew the
Yeah.
pistons out of my Jeep.
Oh no!
Yeah.
What'd you do? Lose a piston skirt or something?
No,
No, he
the
lost
oil
his
pump went
oil
out.
pump.
Oh, oil. You need oil.
Yeah. Yeah. Now they tell
Yeah.
me, thanks,
Well,
Cody.
we were driving around and I'm like, "Is your oil pressure always that low?"
Yeah, what? But of course,
I'm
it's
like,
a Jeep.
It's
that
a Jeep.
clicking. Oh,
It's a
it
Jeep.
was really cool. It kind of sounded like a Cummins diesel for a couple days before it
Yeah.
let go.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh no! Ouch! Well,
And did you
I know
see
someone who
that?
can rebuild it.
Yeah. Did you see that Trump admin halts offshore wind polar projects over national security concerns? So if California wants to have these things on the side of their or out in their ocean and stuff, that stops too.
Yeah, that was yeah, the idea of putting. I mean, these things are huge. These
Yeah.
things are huge.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I know. I worked on those projects.
and they're yeah, and I don't
The
know. It's
thing,
just
the
coming
thing
up
I
with
love
like
is
Mr. Gadget. I don't know who's coming up with these ideas.
the thing I love is the pedestal. So there's two parts when we pour concrete because I worked. I delivered the cement to these job sites,
Mhm.
and basically they just dig a 12-foot deep hole by like 20 feet wide, and they just start dumping concrete into it. And when they fill the hole up, that's the bottom, and then they set the pedestal. You're talking 400 to 800 yards of concrete, depending on the geology of the ground and the wind load. I was
For
talking to the lead
one
engine
for one
for
windmill.
one, yeah,
Yeah.
and he was saying that it would take 40 years for one windmill to offset the carbon of making it because you got to burn coal to make cement.
And the fiberglass because they can't make them out of all steel and all the different components, and then the oil because there's about I don't know 13 or 14 gallons of oil in each one that pumps and recirculates. It's got to cool the generator, so they've got special these. I mean, they're not like just a windmill that just spins and ooh, you got energy. They're pretty complex. They only last. I think they've got like 10-year life cycles, but they usually average about 6, and then the whole head has to come off and be redone. And then you got to bring out a tractor and a crane, and those things don't
Yeah,
run on, you know, fairy
hopes and
dust,
dreams.
you know.
Yeah,
So I mean, just servicing the thing, you're going backwards. So it just wasn't well thought out. And I think the guy that came in and plunked the idea down on the desk said, "And I'll give you guys 20% commission." And that's how they sold it. They said, "I don't care what the idea is
well,
as long as I make money off of
the,
it."
the thing that I like is no one realizes how damn loud those things are. They're horribly loud. Like we used to go out and have to sleep in those windmill fields. I actually put a video up on my YouTube page of me sleeping in the field next to them because we had an early morning. It's all
Really?
night long. Oh, they're loud, horribly loud. They're
I,
not.
I
They're no quiet thing.
I barely even see them running. We've got them on the 101 going north, and I go up to all through the county and through the district, and they've got them along the 101, and I'm half the time they're not even running. They're just sitting there, and I'm like, if they're not making power, what are they doing there? I mean, for that kind of money and that kind of subsidy, you know, we should be seeing those things running 24/7. Just pumping the grid full. And they're only doing like, I think all of our green energy in the state does like a couple percentage points of energy for the billions and billions of dollars we put into it. Um, you know, Diablo, I think, does 11 to 17% of the state's energy, and they tried to shut it down. And they had to do an emergency, negotiation with PG&E to keep it open for another, I think, 5 years. So, yeah, they're just the people in charge of the state are not. They shouldn't be in charge of anything at all.
I actually found the video. It's called "Windmills Are So Loud." Look for it on my YouTube channel. You can see how horrible they are. And that was made in April of 2019. Yeah, when we were
How
working
long
out
is it?
there.
Is it a
It's
reel
two and a
or
half,
2.5 minutes?
minutes.
And
Yeah.
that's about all you can stand.
Oh, dude. We would literally run our diesel engines in our trucks just to overcome the noise so we could sleep.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's just because you can live like it's weird when you would sleep out. You can your mind can like take that noise in and not hear. You can substitute it, I guess you would say. You can fall asleep to it. But yeah, it was horrible. It's horrible.
It's not so much the noise of the windmills. It's the noise of hearing the birds squeal as they get sliced in two and hitting the cab of your truck. Boom. That'll scare
You
you.
know, that's actually a lot more realistic than you want to give credit to.
Oh man.
Dude, we would go. Dude, we asked the game warden one time. We were out there in Texas. Where were we? Out below Sweetwater, Texas, where we were doing this. They had the game warden come out. I'm like, did they have to get a permit for all them birds they're killing? Because that's way worse than hunting. There's just all this, like a duck was dead down there. There was just birds everywhere. Anything that'll fly, it'll take them out, and it's a gruesome death. They're horrible.
They're looking for a place to perch. It's tall, and they fly around it, and and that thing's going pretty quick, and it just whacks them right out of the air. There's tons of reels. You can go on Facebook or just look up bird strike windmill, and you'll find all these videos. Most of the time, they'll go out there and they'll just film the ground where all these dead birds are. It's so if you're an
Well,
if you're an environmentalist, that's probably not the best.
the one I liked is we were taking soda out to I don't know if they have it anymore because we stopped going into California because it just became too much of a headache. But out there by California City, where like the 395 and the 58 come together, or 54, forget. It's like, yeah, where they cross. They used to have this big solar farm, and they would these mirrors would like bend and heat up this tube of sodium and send it in and like use that out there to generate turbine energy. And you would go out there, and the amount of dead animals underneath that whole contraption, because the mirrors are reflecting the sun. It's like the birds would fly over this solar farm and just get cooked in the air.
Oh,
Is there a Popeyes around here?
We would laugh because we're just like
off-chain
staring.
Popeyes.
Yeah, Popeyes. Literally, they're popping their eyes. Yeah. No, it's I've been involved in we pulled cement out to a desalination plant out there in California. We've done that solar farm where we hold sodium out there so they could restock their sodium, because sodium holds heat better and they can transfer it like a fluid when it gets to a certain temperature. Solar panels, done more solar. I can't even count the number of solar panels I've helped put in. I probably put in 3 phases of a 5-phase system out here near Corona, New Mexico. Probably put in 200 or 300 windmills helped with that project. And
Oh, wow.
all these environmental programs are so hard on the environment. It's like,
It's just money. It's just tons and tons of money, and we haven't seen the return on it. And the companies are subsidized, so whether or not they're actually making money is kind of hidden. And it's all backroom deals. It's all and like I said earlier, it's people have a good heart. They want to save the environment. I want to save the environment. I don't want to see the environment trash. I don't want to see us to go back to strip mining and
No.
clearing fields and but we haven't done that kind of stuff since the turn of the century, last century. where we were cutting down, what do they call it? Clear cutting, and
Yeah.
leaving massive amounts of, I mean, we're always replanting. It doesn't take much to replant. And if you're in the lumber industry, you're like, you're cutting your idea. You know what? It's funny. I was reading an article one time, and they said the only people that actually were responsible for all the clear cutting around the last turn of the century was the government. They would go and they would clear cut, they would haul all the wood off, and they didn't care. But almost every single lumber company would either cut lanes and leave some behind, or replant, because they wanted to perpetuate their own business. Nobody's going to, put themselves out of business. And it was hilarious because they did a study and they said, okay, all the private industries are fine. It's the government that was doing all the problems, and they're trying to regulate the private companies. So
The thing I
it's
the thing
just
I find interesting is do you know who was the biggest environmentalist lawyer in the United States until very recently? Did you know who that was?
environmental.
The
Lawyers.
most highly paid, powerful environmental lawyer in the United States.
Was it Dianne Feinstein's husband?
No, it was Robert Kennedy.
Robert Kennedy. Oh, really? Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, Robert Kennedy Jr. And he, like, Sierra Club honored him, all these groups honored him, and then he started looking at why we were having autism and wrote a book about it. I read his book about the great and that's when he started losing favor. Is But he's a hardcore environmentalist. He's done more
Well,
to clean up the environment than probably anyone else in that administration.
well, and again, good-hearted people with good intentions. I mean, if it wasn't for people like RFK and Aaron Brockovich and all these people, we would be swimming in toxic waste. So my dad used to work for the water department, and one of the things that they did constantly were testing the water. We're one of the few places in the world that have a municipal water supply throughout our entire nation. You can go to any tap, turn it on, drink it. It's federal standard. We
Mm-hmm.
have potable
Yeah.
water everywhere. So, and that's hard to do. Other places, the water's so bad, you have to have separate water lines and truck it in and jug it in, and don't drink the water out of the tap because it's not good for drinking. But we've got such a lock on our clean water, and that was done years and years ago. And so I like that. I like that about it. A lot of the bottled water you get, which is hilarious, is municipal tap water. It's,
Oh yeah, from municipal. Yeah, let's see. Yeah.
you know, you, yeah, you just, they're filling up. I filled up a couple of jugs through the tap. I mean, Tuscadero water is really great. Or Tuscadero Municipal Water Company has got some really good water.
Really
We got some,
good. Oh
it's really good
yeah,
water. So, so I'm filling up these empty jugs with water and then pouring it in the coffee maker to make coffee. And they're like, "Oh, you can't use that." And I go, it's probably better than the stuff that came in the jug, So
well, the thing that was hard when I moved out here to New Mexico is the water in Paso Robles is so, like, clean. It's not a hard water. And this idea of water softeners and running through filters to keep the lime out of your water. And then we run evaporative cooling, and you got to put, like, all these filters on to keep the lime out of the
oh yeah,
air
it's all
conditioners
crisp.
and stuff. And I'm just like, it took me, I didn't understand it because the water in California was never hard. It was always really soft and taste really good.
Yeah, it
I
depends on
was,
where you're at.
yeah, Paso Robles water is really great. They make beer out of it and ship all over the country. Oh, that 805
Yeah, I used to
stuff's,
brew beer back a long time ago, and water is really important for beer.
So
And
yeah.
it's also,
I
I
remember
mean, for
that.
any spirit. Yeah, you remember you've had my beer before. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But
For
yeah,
stuff that
the
was made
water's
in a
really
bathtub, it was great. No, just, no.
made in a bathtub.
What was
I
cool
took
is we'd
bottles
actually,
and would let them rest in the bathtub, but I didn't pour the beer in the
uh,
bathtub.
but I remember when we would
Never
go
let me
down
pour.
San Luis Obispo, we get those containers that you could pressurize to, like, let it ferment. I remember helping you set that up couple
Mhm.
back in the early mid 2000s, running down there helping you do all that, get the
Yeah.
filters. That was like a big fad for a while. This
Yeah,
microbrew.
it was fun, it's interesting, it's, the chemistry of it's kind of nice, and getting to see, it a finished product, it's kinda like bread making or anything else. It's good to have those skill sets to understand how where your beer comes from, you know? I don't drink anymore, so it's left that behind me, but,
It's a shame because my mind, how you always remember things better than they were. Because I remember you had some pretty good beer. So,
oh, yeah, it was I made some pretty good batches, but it was time consuming and, um,
you
you
had
stop
kids. Yeah,
I had kids,
kids
yeah,
take
I
a.
can be out the garage drinking beer with my buddies when I got kids. They're, uh, they're wonderful though, I
Oh,
recommend
your
everybody
daughters.
can.
I think the hardest part when I came back out there and what was it, 22? Is I remember all your kids when they were like
Yep,
tiny. Like your
yep,
daughter, one of your daughters was a preemie. She was just tiny little thing, and
yeah.
now she's like
Both of them,
walking, talking. Yeah.
yeah, both of them were freemies, and my oldest one, she was, 1 pound, 1 ounce when she was born. Micro preemie, and so very, very tiny, and she's working at the shop now. She's my bookkeeper. She
Oh
takes care of the
wow.
books and comes in and does all that stuff. My other one's in college, and, she's back for the holidays, but, she's studying business in, Kentucky. Kentucky,
Kentucky.
you wanna talk about good water,
Oh
you get
yeah. I got
Kentucky
some good
bourbon.
one.
Yeah, you can't get to Kentucky bourbon without that Kentucky water,
Yeah,
and
I
all
got
of
a couple bottles of Kentucky bourbon sitting up in my pantry out there.
yeah.
I would say it what it is, but they're not paying us. So
I
I
don't need your
was
endorsement.
reading I was reading that book, was it Think and Grow Rich?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that
One
was
of
a
the
good
first
book.
rules is never do anything for free. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was a great book. I really appreciate the recommendation.
Yeah, I need to reread it. I haven't read it for years, but it's all the basics. It's funny because you read it and you're like, "Wow, that's not what I thought it was gonna be."
Yeah.
No, it's
And then you have to read it over and over and over again, get the concepts and use the concepts. And yeah, I wrote it down into my iPad so I
There
can
you
read it aloud and just keep up with it. It's a lot of great work. It's a change, a mindset. I like this. And how old is this book again? Like 19.
It was done in the 1920s. Yeah. It was
1937 is the book. It
1937.
was, yeah, it's what it said.
He went around and
It's-
talked to Henry Ford and Carnegie and all the big names. But we this is stuff we know, and this is stuff we should learn in high school. I was kind of upset because my daughters are just now learning about, Roth IRAs and putting money away for retirement and how little it takes to have a couple $1,000,000 by the time you're retired, and the importance of compound interest
Oh, yeah.
and, investment, and none of this has gone over in high school, 0. I mean, they give you a credit card when you're in college, but they don't talk about investing or, uh, individual retirement accounts. So,
Well,
it's sad that our public school system does such a poor job with our kids nowadays. Um, so I'm really working hard on that with some friends of mine
did
trying
you,
to.
have you ever read Dave Ramsey, the Complete
Oh,
Money
yeah.
Makeover? Oh man,
Mhm.
that changed my life. That was a mind altering concept too.
Yeah. If they just did that in high school, just the Dave Ramsey, money makeover, that's all they had to do, do a couple semesters throughout high school, it would change our country, but they don't really want that, and, yep, there you go.
Because
Yeah.
nobody's going to make profit off of these college students and stuff.
Yeah, we're permanently in debt, and,
But
it's
you know what's interesting? The reason the Bible talks against debt is because you're a slave to the debtor.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
if you're servicing the debt, you can't get past that concept. And once I read that you're a servant to the debt and not to God, it totally
Mm.
changed my perspective on the whole concept of debt.
That's right.
And then, like, I explained it to these kids. I'm like, I used to play video games, and when you would play the game, you earn your way through the game, or you could go pay and cheat and get all this stuff. And then the appeal of the game went away because you're no longer working through the game. You just go out and conquer and buy and do all this stuff. And I look at life as not that life's a game, but when you get it given to you, the value of ownership is just completely gone. My dad was some say frugal, some say other things. The one thing my dad did do is he charged me for everything. Nothing was free with that guy. And
Well, that's because you
my
probably broke it.
let's not clutter this conversation with facts, okay? Yeah, well, you know,
That's a good lesson, I'm sure.
yeah, it's just I started working for my dad's friends when I was 13 and just really learned. He didn't. He started laughing because I went out in the middle of San Luis Obispo and ran A&M Roofing. There's a company there in Atascadero called A&M Roofing, or there used
Mhm.
to be. I don't know if they are anymore. But stripping roofs summers in San Luis Obispo and Atascadero.
Not
It's
fun.
like, and these kids complain now. I was getting $5.25 an hour, working, working like a working like a slave in the heat, man. Sweating, hauling rolls of felt up there, and stripping
Mhm.
roofs, and but when I
Yeah.
got that paycheck, it was like it was mind altering. The first time I ever got a job where I made $100 a day was working for Jason. And I gone from I was getting like $12 an hour, and the idea of making $100 a day versus like $100 a week was just like, what am I going to do with all that money? You know?
Yeah. Well,
So
we get back to the economy. What's happening with the economy? We'll talk on that
yeah,
because
that's a good like segue back to the economy.
I wanted to talk about what's going on with our economy and how good it is and how wrong all these economists have been. Most of the economists have been running around saying that if you impose tariffs, we're going to have a trade war. That's going to drive prices up. Everybody's going to start charging a bunch of money for stuff. If you reduce taxes, you're not going to have enough money, and that's going to prevent the government from incentivizing things. You're going to have all these companies just go out of business because there's no longer an incentive to create because the government has to have that carrot out there. And what's the government going to do with homeless people? They're all starve to death because we don't have these government programs for bringing
Hmm.
taxes. And just every excuse in the book to say you can't lower taxes and increase tariffs and make the inflation reduce inflation and he just proved them all wrong. And this has been a model that has been used over and over and over again, and every single time it's been successful when it was implemented. And it's basically, when people have their own money, they just tend to spend it more wisely than when you give it to someone who doesn't really care what the outcome is if they just spend it. Milton Friedman was famous
Oh
for
yeah,
saying
Milton.
there's
Yeah.
3 ways to spend money. I think, have we gone on over this before? Uh,
Yeah.
he, yeah, he was famous for saying there's 3 ways to spend money. There's when you spend money on your own things for you. You care if it's quality because you're going to use it, and you care how much it costs because it's your money. But if you buy something for someone else, right? You know, like a present, you care how much it costs because it's your money, but you really don't care about the quality. You may not get the, same quality. You might, you're going to spend a little less and you're going to give it away to someone else. So you really don't care about the quality. But the worst way to spend money is when you spend somebody else's money on stuff for somebody else. So It's not your money, so you don't care how much it costs, and it's not your stuff, so
Thomas
you don't care about the quality. And that's every
Thomas
dollar that the government spends. Is
Thomas
somebody
Sowell
else's money on somebody else's stuff.
well,
That's why
Thomas
we
Sowell
just
talks a lot about that too in his books. Thomas
uh,
Sowell, he was another economist,
yeah,
and
well,
you
he's
know,
a philosopher. I mean, Thomas Sowell is amazing. Yeah, he's one of my favorites. Favorite. Uh, he wrote Vision of the Anointed. Another great book by him, and it kind of goes over the idea of how um, people in power think that somehow their plans or their goals are hittier or more moral than you taking care of yourself. You know, you want to get a job, buy a house, raise your kids, and have a nice life, right? Well,
uh-huh.
how foolish are you? You know, we're the government. We have such a better idea for the plan for your life. You know, just
Yep.
go to work, give us all your money, and we'll figure out how to study your life. So,
The thing that
yeah.
I always frustrated me about the government when I lived in California is I was working for a company up in the Bay Area, and they decided to change some legislation on like the way your power went into the building or anyways but I remember my boss, her name was Joe. It's kind of what my daughter's middle name is, Joe. But she was just saying, she goes, don't you just love it when the government just comes up with an idea that they don't have to pay for, and then they just impose it on us and just assume we have the money to do it?
Mhm.
And that was a powerful, she's like, yeah, let's just, I got a payroll, just let me go drop $100,000 on a new pole because some new guy needs to show that he's changing things. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
it
it sounds like I'm anti-government, and I'm not anti-government because I believe government has a very important role in how we interact the federal um, structure helps keep the states from going to war with each other. I mean, if it wasn't for the federal government, we'd have states warring with each other all the time. We have a stable currency. Until we had a centralized bank, our money was really stable. In fact, the most stable in the world. It's still the currency of the of the world, but we're losing that, and it's because this perpetual printing and spending. And we owe money on the national debt to the Federal Reserve, which is a cartel. I mean, let's be honest. And we will never pay back the principal. That's not even an option. We're just into them for interest for the rest of eternity. And if you look at technology and how it's eased our lives over the last century, we should be working 1 or 2 days and living like kings without any problem. But there's a siphoning effect of this, you know, of this money system. And some of it may be good, you know, where, we all put a little bit of money into the Federal Reserve, and it, funds our retirements and stuff like that. Because um, if you don't have interest, right? If you don't have interest, you don't have retirements. You know,
Yep.
if you just took money, put it aside and didn't have interest on it and just saved it with no inflation, you wouldn't be in the same position as if you had compounding interest over 40 years. So all these retirement funds are dependent on the monetary system we have. And so it is good in that sense, but it reduces our effectiveness and the fruit of our labor in in our lifetime, in our working lifetime. So if we were able to create a system that where we could set aside things and live out the our golden years without this type of retirement system, it would be fine. But I don't know a better way or something that would replace it.
My
well the
parents always told
problem
me, "Do not put all your money into the government because, they're gonna find a way to take it, steal it, whatever it is, and so do the Roth IRA, you do the 401k, do the matching funds, you do whatever you can do and save money, because at the end of your life, you want to have something to do. You want something to be able to keep you going when you can't work anymore. And he goes,
Mhm.
the government, it's such a small return, very small return, versus if you put it directly into the market and all that kind of stuff. And so, like, all right, first job I got that outside of Tootin' Totem in Amarillo, Texas, I did the 401k match, the max, and never looked back.
There you go. Yeah, you're gonna be golden. Unfortunately, I don't have that. My 401k, um, it disappeared. One of the companies I worked for, I started one, and it went bankrupt, and it is it has vanished. So it never got rolled over. And then when I started my own
Oh,
business, obviously, you can't have a 401k with your own business. It's got to be a Roth IRA or an IRA or something like that. And because of you know, what you sacrifice to have kids and what you sacrifice to stay in business in a bad economy. I honestly think that if we look back on the Obama years, if you took out the artificial stability that they basically printed a bunch of money to artificially stabilize the economy, that we ended up just to decimating it, that if you took that and just offset it, you would the depression we were in under those 8 years and under the last 4 years were way worse than the Great Depression.
Mm,
You know, you just we just basically sold our future to China over those years, so that it's kind of like having a credit card. Like the Great Depression, people didn't go out and put a bunch of money on a credit card, so they didn't feel as broke. That artificial stimulation. If everybody took out $100,000 in loans and jacked up their credit card for during the Great Depression, everybody would have been like, "Yeah, it was fine." But then they would look at that bill every month to pay that back, and that's kind of where we're at. So you would have leveled out that depression, but you still would have had all that debt, and that's exactly what happened during the Obama years and the Biden years. And we need to grow ourselves out of that debt. And the only way to do that is to innovate. What do you do at home? What do you do at home? You reduce your overhead expenses. I mean, I know
mhm.
I just got done making pad thai at home from scratch because it's
oh,
40
yum.
bucks. If it's 40 bucks if I go to a Thai restaurant and I go, I can do that. Watch a couple
Wow, it's
YouTube
40
videos.
bucks.
Oh yeah, it's 40 bucks by the time we leave a pie with uh, enough pad thai to feed 5 people and some rice and stuff like that. It's good, but it's rice noodles and you know, some
Well,
sauces, so
the
you can
thing
make it
that I
home.
find it, the thing I find interesting is the more they devalue the currency to make it look like people are being lifted up and paid more is always astounded me. I remember I had an economist when I was working on that ship. His name was Bill Mason. He was World War II. He served in World War II, and I was working on the LCS 102, restoring that ship up in Vallejo. And he was an
Mhm,
economist. And he explained something to me. He goes, when they started minimum wage at 3.7, they started at 75 cents an hour,
mhm,
and you got 3/4 of an ounce of silver. And what they've done is they've devalued, even though they've made your look like you're making more, they've devalued your labor.
mhm,
Because and he went on, and let's see what the price of silver is right now. So silver is 70, almost $70 an ounce.
mhm.
So you're talking 3/4 of an ounce of that is what, about $50? We're in the rough numbers.
Mhm,
So, um, so the price is you're if you got 3/4 of an ounce of silver, you're making like $50 an hour. Now you're making 20, which is what, $40 an hour less than your labor would have been worth, and you get the same buying power out of that too. I mean, when back in the 30s, you could buy a bunch of stuff for a quarter. You could
Well,
buy
where did all that go? You got to go. Where did that buying power go? Because you're still doing and if you ask, certain people, they would just say, "Oh, well, greedy bosses just aren't paying you enough." Which we know that's not true because I'm a greedy boss and I'm not earning enough, So where did all that extra go? And I'll give you an example of truck driving here in California. You heard about the truck driving incident, right?
Which one? There's been
Well, the one
several.
where the illegal immigrant ran into a bunch of people down south,
which
and
one?
yeah, it happens all the time. But what was the
Florida.
big one that went around? And a lot of times, I was talking to a guy, and he says, "Yeah, these guys will come in; they're illegal, and because California gives out these driver's licenses, they removed, I think, 60,000 licenses or some crazy amount. But they're illegal. So what happens is they get in an accident, they just walk away from the truck. They just leave, hit and run.
Dude, they don't even
And
walk. They don't. No, they don't do that. You know what they do? If they get in trouble and their trailers are all messed up, I swear I've witnessed them get put out of service at a truck stop. They go up with a knife, scrape the side of the truck off, take the name of the company, the base plate number or the DOT number, scrape it all off. They pull another one out, slap it on the side of the thing, rub out all the bubbles, and gone. Because now it's a different company. And if
okay,
and
well,
then I remember,
the
yeah,
guy who was
I've
talking to me
seen
said that they'll just take off. They'll just leave the truck there because they're
Yep.
illegally here, and
the
they maybe
the problem. So we have like a border patrol inspection point about 10, 15 miles out of town. And I remember I got pulled in there and got a random search. And I'm sitting there talking to the border patrol agents. I'm like, "How come you never see these Mexican trucks in here? You're always pulling us over." And he goes, "Because if we stop the Mexican trucks, they'll walk away, and now we have a truck stuck here."
yeah, exactly, yeah, and it's like so. It's the same in LA. I was talking to a guy out of the Rampart station years ago, and I'm a clean guy. I drive my little Toyota truck, and my truck's clean, and I'm a white guy. And they pulls me over and checks my license. He didn't give me a ticket, which was pretty cool. But um, I said, "Why don't you pull these guys over?" And this guy's right in front of us, driving by in a lowrider, and there's like 6 guys in the back, and they all had bandanas on. So why don't you pull that guy over? Why are you pulling me over? And he goes, "Well, honestly, I don't want to get shot." And they would just leave him alone. You know, they just won't. This was before body cams and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, cops could be honest with you and stuff, but now, you know,
Yeah.
they got to use the right pronouns and everything. But California with the truck drivers, I'm pretty sure that the decrease in truckers' pay, because Sandy used to work for me, and her husband was a truck driver, and he made really good money, 100 and a quarter.
Yeah.
And I just looked up truck drivers in California, and they're like at 70, 72. And I go, that's one of the few things that would go down. And I go, I understand why it's going down, because we were flooded with people who were like, "Yeah, I'll drive truck. I don't have a license. I'll have somebody go take my license for me." There's a lady up in
Oh yeah.
Northern California. She was busted because she did like 80 tests for truck drivers. She would go in disguise, take the test, and the guys didn't even speak English. And
I
then
had
yeah.
my wife's uncle is a state police officer for the New Mexico State Police. Well, he's retired, but his friend sent him a CDL, a picture of a CDL, and the name on the CDL is "no name given." That's
Yes,
the
yes.
name. Yeah. And I'm like, I thought that was just like a myth. And he's like, "No. So far, California has 21,000 driver's licenses revoked
Oh, it's 21,000. Okay, yeah.
in
That's an
California."
insane amount. That's an insane amount of driver's license revoked.
There's
Now, now we're going to have a huge shortage of truck drivers, right? So I just had a guy out front
Mm-mm. I,
today.
I I I have a
Go ahead.
projection.
Go ahead. I got to tell you the story. You'll love it because you're a truck driver. Go ahead.
The problem is I was making about $125,000 a year, and these guys were coming in and selling us out, and it just got to where it was too much of a headache to go and do it. With all the regulations and everything, you already see an increase in wages on this. You see the equipment's getting taken care of. The equipment's already going up in quality. It's
Mhm.
like it's righting itself because they're repulling back all this crap out of the system.
Yeah,
But
but when you have to follow the rules because you follow the rules and you're competing with someone who just doesn't follow the rules, and then there's no mechanism to take these people off the road, you end up messing with the whole system, and then nobody people get angry because, why should I follow the rules? Nobody else is doing it. And I want my
well,
truck
yeah,
drivers to follow the rules. I don't want a flaming 80,000 pound missile going down the 101,
That's
especially
true.
my daughter, but,
So here's
just,
something interesting about our economy here where I live. I work in the hospice industry, medical, and I have figured out that the majority of the individuals that are working in one company also are working for at least one or another company,
Mhm,
and that's to float themselves and their families. Hospice, if you want to make a lot of money, headaches, lots of headaches. Hospice, the dying, is a ton of money. People make a ton of money out of it.
mhm,
And I've been doing this for over 11 years. I've been through buyout from buyout and all that kind of stuff.
mhm.
And I'm been finding more popping up all over the place, but also more people that are working for these companies are working for other companies because the pay is just not there. The everything else is going up in the economy. Wages are not.
Well, that's another thing that I wanted to say. I'll tell one story about the truck driver because I
oh,
think
I'm
Cody will
sorry.
like
Yeah,
this one.
yeah.
So, this poor guy, man, I felt so sorry for him, right? He comes in and he has to, my shop, right? The alley right next to the
Mm-hmm.
shop. And trucks come in and they got to back down that alley, so they got to go forward and then back up and make a sharp turn down this alley. And we watch, and there's truck drivers who do it no problem all day long, and then there's one out of like 9 or 10 that will just sit there for a half hour trying to get that rig back there. And so today, this guy's backing up and he's like in the middle of the road with his rear track, trying to make that 90-degree truck. And he's almost hitting the hydrant. He's almost hitting the telephone pole. He ended up brushing up against the gate. So the neighbor
Oh,
across the way came out and screamed at him. This poor guy's shaking. And I go up and I say, take a deep breath, calm down. And I'm trying to help him, figure out how he's going to get this thing back there. But he'd only been driving since September, and he spoke English, and that's better than about half the truck drivers that have been coming in. So you're going to see this carryover where you're going to have people coming into the market because you're going to start seeing it go 80, 90, back up to 100K a year, which is going to attract a lot of people. I mean,
hmm,
grand a year is I might go drive truck, right? You know,
Sign
um,
me up.
well,
Exactly, it's good money, it's a tough job, but
oh,
when the
it's
money comes back, you're gonna see people coming back into it. It's not like, we're just gonna have trucks banned into the middle of the road, but it's gonna take a while. People, you don't just start driving truck, um, on day 1 and you're perfect at it like Cody. Um,
no, I
takes a
have some
while.
story. I got some stories, man. I wasn't perfect the first day.
Yeah, but,
Uh,
the first day they teach you how to go forward, and then the next 9 months they teach you how to back up, right?
let's see.
So
I got my CDL and I went for my first driving job interview at Jones Food Services up there in the Bay Area, and we're going into a school, and I've like no time at all. And I make a right turn and I forget about that off track. It took out a whole like light pole and turn signal and took it all out. And I go and the guy was, and this is, and the best part is this is the drive I'm doing for like my interview.
Yeah.
So this is like, hey, jump in that truck and go out there and see how you can drive. And I go into this school, and it's actually in Benicia. We go into this high school and we get all, and like an hour again on the dock, and these people are just like, you took the light out. The cop comes walking up the berm, like, you say, that is me. I did that. So, I
Oh,
was
wow.
driving dump trucks at the time, and I go, I just got tired of driving dump trucks, and I go back to saying, I'm like, there's no way they hired me. I go back to my other job. I check in. I go back to work. I get a call a week later from the guy who ran it. I don't remember his name, but he's like, were you ever going to come back? You're still one of the best drivers we've seen. I'm like, what the? You still
Yeah.
want me to
Oh,
come work for you?
that's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's they're
Yeah.
hurting. They're hurting for people, and we'll see it. It'll spike. You'll see, the news will talk about how we don't have enough truck drivers and how Trump is evil and stuff like that. Oh, and I want to talk about tariffs a little bit. I forgot about that. So,
Oh yeah. I
everybody
got the
thinks
stats on that. Yeah.
you got the stats and say, yeah, we pulled in like a $600 billion or something like that in the last 9 months, which is a ton of money and is funding
Higher than that.
higher. Yeah, every day we're pulling in all this money, and it's stuff Americans are going to buy anyway. It's making our products competitive. So now you're starting to see more American products ramp up production, and that will end up stabilizing these prices. And as the prices stabilize, competition will bring those prices down. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but with that extra money that's coming into the Federal Reserve, or the not the Federal Reserve, but uh, the Federal Treasury, it it really helps us fund a lot of these programs that Democrats are so happy with. But their idea of funding these programs is, well, why don't we fund it with taxpayer dollars, right?
Mhm.
Because then we'll tax you, we'll take the money, and then we'll blow it. And when it's consumer based, if we start feeling the crunch of, oh, I can't afford these things, we stop consuming as much and those revenues go down. So they don't want that. They want to be able to do it on the income side. Well, with the Laffer curve, that's all the Laffer curve says is, people
Yeah.
will stop earning money. They'll just get to the point where, like, if I earn another $100,000 a year, I'm only going to make $80. I'll just stop earning. So the
Well,
progressive tax,
that's what I
uh,
started doing. It's like it's me and when my wife started earning, it was like you got to a certain point where you're giving more to the government and you're bringing home. So it's like why even work?
yeah, and so self defeating, and
And it's
so
like when you get your first $5,000, $6,000, you put in $25,000 out of your check went into the federal government, and then you do your taxes and you get another $5,000 bill. And they're the only debt collector I've ever dealt with that you cannot negotiate with. They're,
uh,
you owe us
uh,
the money, figure out how you're going to get it to us.
well, they don't
Yeah.
even know what you owe. They just send you. That's the funny thing is, I'll do my taxes, and then they'll just send me a notice saying, "Oh, you owe this much money," and you go, "Why?" Well, because we just calculated it that way. Well, then why am I doing my taxes if you already know how much I owe? You know, it's
Yeah.
the tax system is so complex and so crazy. It's less designed to benefit the people I mean, the government works for us. The tax system should benefit us. But then I don't know anybody who goes, yay, let me go run out and do my taxes because it's so much fun. everybody's terrified of the IRS. Everybody's terrified of the amount of money they're going to owe. Everybody's terrified and hoping that they get some money back. This is not serving the best interests of the American people. And so when you
No.
really look at it and you go, okay, well, let's shift it off on the tariffs. Tariffs do this, make the revenue, and you drop the individual income tax. Now people have more money in their pocket. They're going to buy more stuff. So the federal government gets the same amount of money, if not more, and you end up having a better quality of life. So because
Well,
economists for years have been catering to this um, demand side economy, economics, twisting and contorting that it somehow works. They're amazed when supply side economics actually works. You know,
well, but like every legit economist from my life has said it would work. You just got to do it, and it's like Reagan's saying, if we cut the tax rate, the revenue to the treasury will go up. If we try doing supply side economics, the revenue it'll go up. And they're like, no, we just got to tax the billionaires, and all that stuff. And they proved it.
well,
It's
here's the thing: is if you tax the corporations, I love this thing. They say, well, who do you think pays the tariff? Yeah, the consumer does, right? And I go, well, who do you think pays the taxes on the corporations? The consumer does. So I would much rather tax the foreign governments who are polluting I mean, China is polluting like crazy, right?
no,
Why not just
no.
raise a tariff so that their stuff's more expensive? We can make it here. And now we buy a hammer. So it's $9 instead of $8.50, right? But at least that hammer was made in a factory with OSHA regulations and no carbon emissions and yada, yada, yada. So I would much rather buy, you know, peaches from my neighbor's tree than from some orchard in Mexico where they're using child slave labor. You know, call me crazy. Okay.
Well, the thing I find interesting is the combination of the two is there's like, I think India and North Korea is the only countries that can make the fuel that you guys need in California. And they got to put it on a tanker. And it's going to take 3 weeks to get to you guys. And you think those tankers burn clean fuel, or do you think they burn bunker C?
We used to sell our oil. This was years ago. I mean, with the cost of oil, you'd think we'd sell it. Now we have to pay to have it hauled off. I used to get a check from the oil companies because my waste oil was worth money. When I
Hmm.
had 200-300 gallons of waste oil,
I
they either
remember
had
that,
to
yeah.
pump it out of the ground or buy it from me, and it was clean. It was dirty engine oil, but it was clean. It didn't have rocks in it, and so they would pump it out and they'd count how many gallons and they'd give me a check. And for years that happened. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, now it costs us $400 to unload it. We have to have it tested if it's hot and blah, 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 you know. And so it cost them so much to transport it and pay insurance on all this stuff that they ended up starting to have to, not pay me. And then very shortly after that, they started charging me because, um, you know, the state is so intelligent that they couldn't conceive of some of these really bad shops going, I'm not going to pay to have my oil, removed. I'll just dump it in the creek,
Hmm.
you know? So, you had bad shops that were like, I mean, there's a guy down the street. He's an old guy. He's passed away long years ago, but he used to pour it in a hole in his backyard. I mean, you
I,
know,
re- I, re-
like, and I'm like, you can't do that. And he's like, well, I'm going to pay to have it hauled off. And I'm like, oh,
I
man,
remember when I was a kid,
crazy.
we'd go over to Lancaster and the shops would take the oil and they put it on a spray bar and go and spray it on the ground, keep the dust down.
My neighbor, Kevin, he owns the hay and feed place across the street.
Yeah.
Uh, he had somebody out at his property, and they asked him what he did with the waste oil because he was changing the oil on a tractor. He goes, "Oh, I just spray it on the road," and the guy about fainted. But yeah, that's what they used to do all the time. And I think he was
I,
pretty
I,
serious. you know?
I
And
remember, what is that soda lake there in San Luis Obispo County? On the east side of the county, down in the lower east corner, the soda lake down there.
California Valley?
I don't know. It's a great salt soda lake. There's a
Oh, the
soda
Salton
lake.
Sea? Salton Sea,
Yeah.
there's Soda Lake.
No,
There is
no, it's
Soda Salton Sea?
we went and did an airplane recovery out there. I get the map up here. But this old timer comes up to me and I'm like, "Hey man, where you do this?" He goes, "When you get down to the oiled road, you turn left." I'm like, "What?" So yeah. You didn't know that San Luis Obispo had a soda lake?
Oh, there's so many things about this area. I learn something new every day. This is a wonderful place. I love this
Dude,
place
it's
because it's just there's always something new to find out about it. I was
San
able
Luis
to
Obispo. San Luis Obispo County is one of the only counties in the country that has 27 different uh, climates in it. I remember
Oh
that
yeah,
from when it has 27 different climates in one county.
distinct climates. Yeah, yeah.
Distinct climate.
My daughter
Yeah.
came in, and it's great for growing grapes. It's great for it's great for everything. Basically, I moved here and I said I'm home. I'm home. It's the weather's great. The people are great. Um, I just it's sad that, and I say that all of our problems are not because of politics, because politics is just you know people's preferences. We have a free nation. We're self governed, so we talk things out and we say, hey, I think the government should pay for this, and I'm not. I'm okay with paying taxes to have that. Another guy says, hey, I don't want to pay taxes for that. I don't think we need it. That's politics, right? And then you vote, and so I got to pay a little bit of money for this. No big deal. But what has happened is because of media companies that are purchased by billionaires buy media companies for the sole purpose of being able to manipulate public's opinion. It's a well known fact. You don't buy a media company, a news agency, you know, anymore. Used to be, so that you can get the honest news out to people. You know,
Just
and
ask
most of those
William Randolph Hearst about that. Yeah.
Randolph, yeah, yeah, yeah. William Randolph Hearst, he was interviewed. It's on the tour that the reason that he bought all those newspapers was so that he could sway public opinion. And he'd call his editors up and say, "This is what we're running with," and they'd go, "Yes, sir." They wanted
Yep.
to keep their job, and it's still
It's
the same today. And if we
that's
can
the
get people,
Carrizo Plains out there is where that is. Carrizo
yeah,
Pines.
Christmas, yep,
Yeah. Yeah. But
but if
yeah, William Randolph Hearst. He says, you want to know what the news is? The news is what I tell you it is. And
yeah,
they didn't they attribute him for like starting the Spanish American War or something because of that
maybe
ship that sunk in Havana Harbor or something. Can't
sounds
remember it
familiar.
all. Yeah, but he would have all his newspapers. He had that runway there in front of his castle, and they'd fly the planes in from all over the newspapers with him, so he could make sure that they were telling the right news.
Yep. Well, his paper plant. That's what E.G. Lewis did here in town. Was we have the printery over here, and the newspapers were printed right here. They would have rail cars coming with big rolls of paper, and they'd offload
Mhm.
them in the printery, and they'd print up um, most of her publications right here in Atascadero. Other stuff too, but we got some interesting history here in town, and it's I got to go back on the tour because I forgot about half of it.
The
But
thing that
so
is so upsetting is when I came back there in 22 and started driving around, and bought that car and started driving around where I grew up. I really
mhm.
realized how beautiful it is out there with the grapes, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And then I'm like, why don't I live here? And then I went to the Shell station, and I'm like, yeah, I know why I don't live here. you know?
Well, it's like Cuba. Cuba's beautiful. I've never been, but it's a tropical island in the Caribbean. It's just beautiful. It's got these white sandy beaches and great weather. And And, it's supposed to be just a beautiful, beautiful country. But you have to give up pretty much everything. It's a communist hellhole. And that's what happens is you can take beautiful places, turn them into communist hellholes. And and the problem with communism and socialism is that it has to be imposed on someone. People vote it in and then they go, well, this really doesn't work. Let's vote it out. And by then it's too late. You look at Maduro down in Venezuela. Um, the people don't want him, but he keeps winning the elections by a landslide. And it's been proven that, the Venezuelan model is used here for
Yep.
elections.
Hey,
We're
we can
using
do
The same
landslides here
computers.
too.
yeah, same machine, same stuff. And you heard about what happened in Georgia with all those votes they found, 315,000 votes that were fraudulent. Well, that were removed because they weren't supposed to be there. But how do you vote how do you vote with a ballot that's not supposed to be in there and have it not be fraudulent? You know? So,
Well,
and
that's the great joke around here in New Mexico is we have a very corrupt. Our voting system's very corrupt. And the joke is I used to really like Grandpa until I found out he was voting Democrat, and he's been dead for 10 years.
you would have never voted that way while he's alive.
I would never voted that way while he was alive.
It's the Soviet style election system. You pretend to vote and we pretend to count them.
Yeah. You pretend to vote and we pretend to care. Yeah.
And
It's
that's the way it is. That's all totalitarian governments are that way. They hold these free and fair elections. I mean, in Iraq, we were so concerned when we took over. And after the Gulf War, we took over and we wanted them to hold elections. Of course, they elected another you know um, terrible leader, but um, we went in and we were so afraid that they were going to have illegitimate elections that everybody had to stick their finger in an ink pot so you could tell if they voted, and they walking around with this ink on their finger.
which
And
actually got him killed. So yeah, my
but
brother
the
was.
thing is, you couldn't go in and fake it because the ink would last, several days. You couldn't get it off. So that was a way for them to say, hey, you're going to vote once, you stick your finger in here, your vote's done, get away. And we were so concerned with them having fair elections. But here, it's mail-in ballots, it's secret, and because it's secret, there has to be a strong chain of custody. But we've eliminated the entire chain of custody. Last time I went down and followed the vote, um, they took all the boxes out of the voting centers, you know, the precincts. They put them in a van. The van drove off, and they could have been anywhere in the county. They could have pulled over and switched the boxes out. There was nobody, there's single drivers. There's supposed to be two drivers to the vans. And
Hmm.
and so they lost chain of custody many, many times in the procedure. And then you would ask them about it. They say, oh, well, we don't have enough volunteers. Well, I'm a volunteer. Well, you haven't had the proper training. There's always some excuse that these votes somehow had to be um, kept away from prying eyes. And then, of course, you can't count them all that night. There's too many ballots. We can't do that. You used to
We
do it
got
20
people. We
years.
got labor laws. Yeah, we got labor laws, man. What the hell?
We used to do it 20 years ago when we didn't have computers. Why can't we count them all in one night like we'd used to? Oh, there's too many, and the process is too long and stuff. So it takes 4 months, and and you just can't get volunteers down there to watch them. And then they would open up the observation. They say, okay, we're going to do it on Wednesday. You get down there and they say, oh, we don't have enough people. We're going to do it Tuesday. And, your volunteers get burned out. And then pretty soon they're like, hey, nobody showed up to watch. And we counted the rest of the ballots in one day. When you were here, we only counted 20, but when you weren't here, we counted 100,000. We really fished that day. And it's
Was I?
just so hinky stuff. This is, we've got a really
What?
bad system here.
So I think it's interesting. So the 16th Amendment, which allows them to legally tax people, was finalized and put into effect in 1913.
In one sentence.
Yeah, And until 1913, what do you think the tariff rate was in the United States?
Oh, tariffs? I don't know what the
Yeah,
tariffs.
the
Yeah.
tariff rate in the United States for all incoming goods. You know what it was?
No.
29.6%. The whole government was funded off of tariffs
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
until
Well, they did
1913, and then it
an exit.
changed. They went down to 3% in 1927, no, 1924. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
During the 30s, they went up to the highest rate it's been since then, which is 19.8. And right now, on all countries except for selected ones in the United States, it's 14.5.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they're
And
the
NAFTA
crazy.
is when it got it the lowest during NAFTA, North American Free Trade Act, is
Mhm.
when the tariff rate between the United States, Canada, and Mexico, uh, what we charged them was only 2 to 3%, depending on goods. Canada was charging us 60% on the
Mhm.
stuff
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Donald Trump brought this to the people's attention, and you try to let people know that this is horribly unfair, and they just think, I don't like Donald Trump. I don't like him, and it's bad. So go ahead and read the 16th Amendment if you have it up in front of you, because it's one sentence. And when you really break it down, it is way too much power for the federal government to ever
Oh,
have.
it's so broad too. Let me
So
see.
read
I
it. Yeah.
had I gotta get back in that screen.
Congress shall have the power.
16th
uh,
Amendment. The 16th Amendment grants Congress the power to levy income tax on individuals and corporations from any source without any need to divide among the states on any. Uh, yeah, it's one sentence.
Yeah. Yeah. It basically says that individuals can be taxed everything from the moment that this is how broad it is, okay? And they were saying, "Oh, well, we've got these companies, they'll hide their money or they'll move it. So we got to have it broad enough so that we can put some teeth in it." And the truth is it was never truly ratified the proper way, but they just kind of glazed over it. They did it during, I think it was Christmas weekend, and they rammed it through, and it passed. And a lot of people were terrified, but they swore that it would only be used for, you know, the top 1%,
And it was
would
only going to be
only, it would
4%.
never, it would never go over 4%. It's only for the top 1%ers. So don't ever worry about it. And they kept that for a little while, and then pretty soon it's whatever. But
Within
the words, this is why we keep looking for the Supreme Court to rein in the federal government. They'll never do it because we constitutionally have allowed them to say every penny, everything. It doesn't have to be money. It says all income from any source, right?
hmm
They can tax it. So think about it this way. You're a baby and your mother puts a diaper on you. The government can come take that diaper.
hmm
That is how powerful the 16th Amendment is. You have nothing that the government can't take from you. It is so, and because they haven't used that power that aggressively, people say, well, and then I've talked to people and I go, well, what if we got rid of the 16th Amendment? And their eyes get real wide. Well, how would we fund anything? They're just shocked. Like you couldn't do it any other way. I was actually at a Tea Party meeting, and I asked the audience, these are very conservative people who don't like taxes at all, right? And I asked them, I said, okay, if I were to write legislation to eliminate the DMV, not that I would have been able to, but if I were to write legislation and say, we're going to eliminate the DMV, okay, it's gone tomorrow. How many of you guys would vote for that? And I had like one or two people out of like 75 raise their hand. I said, none of you guys want to get rid of the DMV? And one lady goes, well, how would we get our license?
Program.
Who would we, yeah, who would we go to ask permission to drive? Who would we go? They just couldn't conceive of how would we get along without the DMV, right? And I go, well, we don't have a department of word processors. You know, Word does fine with them. Microsoft's Word does fine. We don't have we don't have to have a government agency for every need. You know, I have a ton of customers who go to the AAA booth to get their registration done because they don't want to
Well,
go to
they
the
can do
DMV.
that now? They can do that
Oh
there
yeah, you
now?
go down to the AAA booth and they'll give you your stickers and everything. You walk in, they give you a cappuccino and wash your
Nice.
car, you know, and it's all part of your $39 a year for AAA or whatever, and you go into and the DMV. This is how hard it is to understand. The DMV is a government agency that all it does is collect fees. And you have to go in and wait hours for them to do that. If I had a
Yeah,
company and all it did was collect fees, I would make it as easy as possible for you to get through the process. You know,
but
but who likes to go to the DMV?
I think that while we're talking, the 17th Amendment was another amendment that really screwed things up. Really screwed things up. The 17th Amendment gave the senators to be elected by the population.
Yeah, yeah,
And before that, they were appointed by the states. And the problem they were having was is the longest reigning senator until the 17th Amendment came around was in there for like 2 or 3 years. And then the Senate, the first thing every house had to do, or state house had to do, is, do we want to keep the senator there? Because the Senate is supposed to be the voice of the people. I mean, the voice of the state. It's the voice of the state. That's the reason there's two of them. The House is supposed to be a representative of the people. And now,
yeah.
basically, when they passed the
Right.
17th Amendment, they took the power of the states to have control over the federal government away. So there's no way for the states' representatives to rein it in.
Well, yeah, the great thing, the founding fathers said that the house would be where they boiled the tea, right? And it was supposed to be a lot of conflict and a lot of people, just screaming and yelling at each other because you have all these different areas. California is unique because it's such a large state. But you think this was 13 colonies. You had like Rhode Island, and you had Virginia. I mean, these were small states.
Delaware, yeah.
Delaware, these are small states. And so they said we're going to have representatives for each, you know, growth of people, and they're going to be in there, they're going to be hashing it out, they're going to be making coalitions, they're going to be working together with these groups to try and convince this group, and it's just going to be a mess. And they knew it was going to be a mess, but the thing was it would force you to work with other people. And once you got a bill written and passed through the House, everybody would be like, yeah, it passed through the House. Okay, so now we know we're not treading on other people. The whole thing was not to go fast, it was to
It was
go
supposed to
fast
be
enough
slow.
where you didn't oppress people, but and slow enough to so where you didn't
Well,
oppress things.
Woodrow
And then it would
Wilson,
go over.
so
Well,
Woodrow
then it was
Wilson,
supposed to go
so
over to the Senate,
yeah.
and the Senate was supposed to be this long, drawn out process of people talking, and it was supposed to be where they cooled it down and they said, whoa, 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 we're looking at this law and we're taking our time. It was a 6-year term, so they wanted people to be a little longer in the tooth, a little more understanding. It wasn't a 2-year term like the House. And they said these senators were going to be usually they were hoping that they would be statesmen, people who already had a lot of experience, kind of the elder. And then they would look at these laws and they would say, okay, well, I think we need to make a change in here before we can pass this, youngsters, right? You youngsters in the House, before we can pass this, I think you need to make these changes. It would go back to the House, and then the House would debate on it some more, and then it would come back to the Senate. And once the Senate said this is good, it would go to the president. The president would say, "Okay, I'm going to veto it or whatever." And that process was to make it slow enough so that enough people could have their input and make things work. And it was a really great thing. Now, the reason they took away um, the way that the senators were elected was because they wanted to control the Senate, and this is exactly what happened. The Senate, um,
Well, they
wasn't
could get
elected by
nothing
the
done.
people.
Yeah.
Senators weren't elected by the people. They were elected by the representatives. So if you had 50 representatives, like
The
California, you have
state
50
representatives. The
the state
state
representatives,
representatives.
exactly.
Yeah.
They had a vested interest in making sure that that senator didn't stab them in the back, because if they voted for a senator and that senator did something bad for their county, they were losing their seat.
Yeah, because
So they
if you read the article, was it? I forget the article, but I've read it where they established the Congress. There was no like 6-year term. It was like you could be in there for life as long as you got the people back in your house, at your state, to keep putting you in. And
well, there's
until they passed the 17th Amendment, the longest serving senator was like 2.5, 3 years. They were always
oh,
rotating them in and out because you would get a new house. Those senators didn't do what the states wanted, they just pull them out and get rid of them, and they put a new guy
huh,
in.
yeah. I can see that. I sure that was
So,
another. Okay,
so
they,
the 6 year, the 17th Amendments gave them the term 6 years because they were sent by the state. So every year the state had to go in and reaffirm that that's the guy they want in the house. I mean, in Capitol Hill. And they didn't get anything done. So Woodrow Wilson's the one that really pushed the whole, we need to get senators directly elected and we need to have taxation. And they're also the one that passed the 18th Amendment, which was prohibition. And prohibition was still like the sliding of the hand. Like they're all looking at this and we're going to push this in like over here, do this too.
yeah, it's
Because
in a
they had
block.
the suffragettes going out there, these women that had just got the right to vote, and they're out there like pushing their agenda to get prohibition.
Yeah, it was a movement of mostly women who were it wasn't suffragettes, it was
Suffrage Act, wasn't it?
suffragettes were for the women's right to vote.
Well, yeah,
And
I might have mixed
which
it
is
up.
funny
Yeah.
because there was a comedian who was doing a man on the street thing, and he was walking around asking women if they wanted to
In
repeal
women's
the
suffrage.
18th Amendment, because it was the women, the suffragettes. It's time to have these women stop suffering, and they're all like,
Do you
yeah,
know,
we'll trying to repeal that.
you know who did that? You know who did that skit?
Uh, oh yeah, what was it? I can't remember
It
his
was
name.
Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla. Jimmy
Oh
Kimmel
really?
was out there
Yeah,
in Women's Suffrage Act, in the Women's Suffrage Act. Women are suffering. They should, it
yeah.
was to get rid of the women's right to vote.
I don't know how that guy got the job back. I don't know how he got. Uh, he is so political. When I watch late night, I want to laugh. I don't want to groan.
Ah,
Yeah.
man, I don't
Yeah,
even watch that anymore. I just watch YouTube now.
But
yeah.
the flip side, have you guys seen that Trump card, the gold card, the
The
visa
credit card.
for
Yeah.
No,
people to come in? It got 1.3 billion so far.
really.
And
Don
it's
Jr.'s really playing on that, huh?
1,300 people, multimillionaires and stuff like that,
Uh,
have already done it. So when you
uh,
look at it, the processing fee is $15,000 plus $1 million contribution, a $2 million for corporation, and then a platinum card at $5 million for tax benefits.
oh wow.
People are buying them.
Yeah, yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what's funny has been people have been saying their Trump card for years, and now you can get a gold Trump card.
Platinum. You can
Mhm.
get platinum.
Oh man, I can't. Since we're talking Trump right now, how about the Trump battleship that he came out with today? I mean, like,
Oh no,
wow.
I haven't heard.
Oh yeah, he's coming back. They're going to call it the Trump class of battleships.
There you go.
I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
mess with one of those.
No, no, he's bringing back. Well, he did it in his first term. He really kind of renewed the military and started some stuff, and they couldn't stop it all because a lot of the money was already contracted out. And that's one of the things about government spending is when they write legislation and they promise the money and they write
Here, I'll
contracts.
show you.
And
Here,
Biden did that. He refused, like Anwar. Um, we paid billions of dollars not to drill because they said, okay, we got a contract to drill. We got this lease, and he said nope. Did a moratorium on him and took it out, and
there's your
all of a
Trump.
sudden you're like paying
There's your
someone not to drill.
the new Trump class of battleships. There you go.
Oh, nice.
I wonder if
Look
that
out.
Trump card and the platinum and all that kind of stuff is going to go towards buying more of those ships, or where he's going to put those that money, that $1.3 billion.
You know, I love
Oh,
it when
it's
Trump comes out. I voted for
baller.
Trump. But when
Back
he's
into the
sitting there,
ballroom, we're all going to dance on it. Yeah, except for Cody, he can't dance. You see him,
they
right?
have two.
Even when
Some
he's
have.
drunk, he's not good.
Well, that's the smartest thing he did because the ballroom itself is going to be the event place for all of the dignitaries that come in anytime they have an event because the security is going to be so good. No president going forward is going to dismantle it, right? Because it's like, A, it was paid for with private money. They can't complain about that.
Here, I'll show you.
It's going to be a historical, a place. You can't. I mean, he tore down a carport, right, to put this up, and they freaked out. So
There's the
now,
ballroom right there.
exactly, it's
There's the
huge.
White House. There's
I know
the
it's huge, and
Well,
so the security
he
there's going
took
to be.
down the first lady's wing. Yeah, the East Wing.
That's Melania's closet.
You can.
Um,
She lives down in Florida.
yeah, no, I mean,
Nine.
man, she is so classy. She is so classy, and
She's coming up with a movie at the beginning of next year. Can you read about
oh
that?
yeah. No, I think it's out. It's
On Angel,
Melania. Yeah.
No, I don't
Uh,
know if it's that, but it's going to be in theaters.
yeah. But yeah, she's very classy lady. She speaks like 7 languages. And very
There's
smart. She
the
had her money before she met Trump, and they all call her a gold digger, and they all say that she's, dumb. And it's just it's horrible what they do. And then you listen to Michelle Obama talk, and you're like, really, you guys worship this lady? Ah.
yeah.
Yep, there you go.
So yeah, it's impressive. Um,
It's impressive, yeah. And he's
and
very
then
smart. How
watching them freak out when they do that, it's just like they took down the presidential uh what was it, all the stuff they were taking out. It was basically an unused office building on the White House
yeah.
grounds
It
because
I don't think it was I don't think it was that much.
everything's done on the West Wing over there. That's the East Wing was always reserved for the First Lady's side, but it's like Trump was saying, we don't elect a First Lady. Why does she need to have an office?
if I was going to build that ballroom and that kind of stuff, I would have someone actually design it. But yet I'd be like, what should we put underneath it? Because it's so big and all that kind of stuff.
You think a national treasure thing?
Maybe.
Well, that's what they
Because
did when they
who's going to
remodeled them. Back in the 50s, they remodeled the main house because, I think, what's his name? Oh, who was it? The president at the time that came after the second Roosevelt, Truman. They were playing the piano up in the residency, and they were getting after it, and it fell through the ceiling. So then they had to move out of the White House, and they gutted it. They took that sucker down to the studs, and they rebuilt the whole thing, and they added like 2 levels underneath the original part of it. I was reading about that the other day. I really like history, so
Yeah, don't download too many schematics of the White House. They tend to put you on a list.
Another
dude,
list. Cody's
I
always
have
on list.
Yeah, you're already on a list. You're on all of
Yeah.
those. Yeah.
Santa's list, the naughty
I'm
They
telling
list.
gotta
you,
pick
the best way to get to security is to encourage the cavity search. It makes it so much more awkward for them.
Oh,
Whose
man.
turn is it? Can I request her? She has small hands.
Oh my
I don't
Anyways,
know what to say to that. I just don't know what to say to
And
that.
then 1776, they're gonna be giving the military, $1,700.76 or
Yeah.
$1,700.76.
Those checks have apparently are already going out.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I'm like, "That's pretty amazing, I didn't see that one coming."
that was
Well,
pretty cool. Yeah.
they tried to make Trump out as, someone who hates the military, and they, the whole thing where they said, "Oh, Trump said they're suckers and losers," which was it was hearsay. It was somebody said they heard him say it, which nobody corroborated. They said at the time that this person said he said it,
Oh
there was a
yeah.
dozen people around and nobody else remembers him saying it. So are you the only one who said it? And it went through the news cycle over and over and over again. And there's still people who think that he hates the military, thinks they're suckers and losers. It's the same thing with the Charlottesville thing where he said there are good people on both sides. And he denounced the neo-Nazis, but they still say, "Oh, he was saying the Nazis were good people."
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
he's suing
it's
the
all these
BBC for that right now too.
yeah, yeah, and he's won every single one, you know? It's and
Yeah.
they said that he's a felon because he got convicted of, 37 counts. It was the same thing that they said he did over and over and over again, recounted, recycled, and, yeah, he got convicted of it, but it was the first time in American history that they ever said to a jury, "Well, you can pick the law that you think he broke, and if 3 people think he broke this law and 5 people think he broke this law, we're gonna mash that jury together, and then if you get 12 people who say that agree that he broke one of these laws, then we're gonna go ahead and convict him." And so there was no consensus on the what he did. And then they just denied sentencing. So he was never sentenced. Convicted, but never sentenced. So
Well, it's the only
you do that.
time that they've brought a guy up on fraud charges that the bank didn't go and say, "Hey, we've been screwed." And
Yeah, there
then,
was no
then
victim.
they yeah, there's
There was
no
no victim.
victim of any crime. And the fact the bank says that they got paid back so promptly, they would not hesitate to borrow money from him again or lend him money again.
Oh yeah, no, they said we would love to do business with him. He's a great person to do business. And it was like he undervalued Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, I mean, it's like nobody in their right mind would say. I mean, it was based on he said that this was worth a certain amount, and I think because I don't think Donald Trump packs his own luggage. I don't think he writes up his own, you know, um, documents. I don't think his signature is on much that would put him in jeopardy for stuff like that. So I think that might have been their way of saying, well, this is something that he personally signed saying, I certify that Mar-a-Lago's worth this, and they said, aha, we've got him personally doing this because there's always this, separation through lawyers and stuff. So I don't know, but I do know that they're in hot water. Like John Brennan is getting indicted. He's getting indicted by a Florida court. A lot of these people are really scared. Obama's scared. You see Hollywood people are
Yeah.
leaving the country. Ellen left the country, you know.
Oh, she's coming back apparently. That's the new word.
Clintons are scared.
Clintons are scared. Well, all this Epstein stuff, they were screaming for the Epstein stuff to come out. It comes out, it's all these pictures of Bill Clinton. And it's like,
Yeah.
and,
Michael
and
Jackson, Bill Clinton. Yeah.
and that if they had anything, they would have released it when Biden was president. So they're saying, oh, well, they're getting rid of all Donald Trump's getting rid of all the evidence of him being in there because it's his DOJ. And I go, well, when you had your DOJ in there, why didn't they
All
make
of been
copies,
perfect
protect
time.
it, or, you know
Or
yeah,
just release it.
or
All the
release it.
photos of him. He would have
Yeah,
lost all of his base.
a
Well,
good
yeah,
time to
that's
release it would have been in October, right before the election,
the October surprise, yeah.
Yeah,
Flooded it. Yeah.
but they didn't have anything. The only picture they have is a picture of him with Epstein, and there's, uh, uh, somebody in the background, and she wasn't even a victim. And so they're like, "Oh, he's in a picture." Okay, yeah.
Well,
He's
the
a
thing that they're going off on now is I guess they're trying to call him a pedophile because of the Miss America pageant or whatever they called that. So he would go in and kind of like talk and flirt with the girls, and I'm like, that doesn't make him a sexual predator, you know.
he is it's funny if you listen to his interviews and you listen to how he talks, he is somewhat awkward in that aspect. He's not they try to make him out to be this, really, he's very respectful of women. He's always been respectful. There's not one single person that in all of his business that dealt with him personally that came out and said he's an awful person. Stormy Daniels, that whole thing, absolute complete and utter lie. She had an NDA. She came out and said that something happened. Um, he's never admitted to sleeping with her, as far as I know, and he's really never commented on it. He had an NDA. I honestly think that probably what happened was he tried to, you know, help her or do something with her, and she turned on him. But the guy that was her lawyer ended up embezzling from her,
Oh yeah,
and yeah, and he was what was his name? Um, and Andrew, he was something I can't remember his name, but he was on the View, and they were trying to get him to run for president. Turns out he was embezzling from her.
Stormy
She's a
Daniels,
porn star. She
lawyer,
lied, about it.
lawyer.
Apparently, she had an NDA and came out and said a bunch of stuff that she was, you know. And I think he sued her and won.
Mhm.
And you'd think
Michael
that would go on.
Michael
Michael Avenatti, yeah.
Avenatti.
And
Yeah,
every time they try to get something to stick on him, he's. I mean, there was one story they tried to get where this guy said that had a claim against Trump Tower and said that he didn't get paid for some work he did. I mean, this guy builds in New York skyscrapers, and there's this one contractor says he never got paid, right? And it was some like $10,000, you know, thing that he owed, right?
mhm, yeah.
And they get him on. They get the interview. They get the interview with him, and they go, "Okay, well, tell us what happened with Donald Trump." Well, he didn't pay, and blah blah blah, and I had to go through all these problems. And so what happened? Well, I got sent upstairs, and I went up and met with Donald Trump, and I told him what was going on, and he pulled his checkbook out. He wrote me the check for the amount that I said it was, gave it to me, and said, "Are we good?" And that was it. Didn't even
Sorry about
verify it. Just took care of it. So writes this guy
yeah.
a $10,000 check and says, "Hey, are we good?" Okay, he's yeah. So I mean, you know that's an accounting or bookkeeping error. And when he finally got in front of Donald Trump just took care of it and said, "Hey, I want
Yeah.
my guys to get paid." And
Yeah, you
everybody who
guys
worked for him said that. He was generous with bonuses. It's Christmas time. He's generous with bonuses, generous with tips. Was always giving, and he would give money to people that were like he would hear that a woman had a problem, lost her job or something like that, and he would silently give her money. It was not even something to tout. He was known for that, and so and they try to tear him down. He's Trust me, he's a billionaire. He didn't need to become president of the United States and get
he
shot at.
lost money. Yeah.
Oh yeah, billions. And that just shows the character. And you go, what kind of character of a guy who doesn't have to become a president or go into politics does it, and then goes again after they try to indict him, put him in prison for 100 years. He could have just said, you know what? All he had to do was say, you know what? I'm not going to run again, and they would have left him alone.
Yeah.
If he just went away, they would have left him alone, and he didn't. And and it just shows the character. And then you've got Biden, who was in the Senate for decades,
50
and
years.
all these all these, I mean, Burisma, his son, his whole Biden family getting wealthy. None of them have any jobs. They're all just grifting off the government contracts. And you sit here and you go, this is the guy that they love,
Mhm.
and Donald Trump's the guy that they hate. And I was honestly trying to figure out why. And it's if you watch the news, just watch MSN, MS Now, watch NBC, ABC, CBS, all these corporate. Once you see it from my point of view, you kind of wake up and you kind of go, okay, something's going on here, and you watch it. You absolutely see the bias and the narrative and the structure and multiple news medias working together to push that narrative. And you go, wow, it's the deep state and the cabal, the people in the background who are pushing the narrative to make the public think a certain way. Absolutely there. So,
Yeah. And it's funny when they put up this video of and they're putting layers and layers and layers of these news anchors saying the same exact
Yeah.
thing, same
Like
script.
same
It's like,
cadence. Yeah.
that's not organic.
yeah, it's not organic. And,
Yeah.
you know, it takes a lot of money to keep that going, but we produce a lot of money. Um, I say this a lot. I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about this because it's something that will stick in your brain for a long period of time. Anybody who knows anything about production knows that if I make something from, if I carve or whittle something and it takes me a lot of time to create that, right? It's going to cost more than if I do it automatically, if I automate it, if I specialize.
Mhm.
So if I was to make a car and I made the whole car, it would take me a long time and it wouldn't be as good than if I just made a bumper. If I made a bumper and I cranked them out, I could sell them to the car manufacturer. You could bolt it on and they could make cars way cheaper and faster, right?
Yeah.
Manufacturing. So everybody knows that. So why is it that when you go into a city where you have a ton, I mean, millions of people who are all specialized, everything costs more?
Mhm.
You go into LA and you get a glass of orange juice at a hotel, it's like $20, right?
Well, talk about LA.
Why? Why is everything
Specialized.
cost?
How much
Yeah.
you run a shop, right? And I
Mhm.
know that you have a coffee maker there because I was intimately involved with making
I have
coffee
several.
there.
I have several.
How
I love
much is
coffee.
would you have? You can have Folgers Crystal, which is a mass produced thing, and
Uh-huh.
you can go buy a container of Folgers Crystal for what, $12? Or you can get a specialized coffee made for 6. When you get a specialized thing, it always costs more. So I I
Yeah,
always
well,
use
when you mass produce things, the production per unit cost goes down.
Mhm.
And when you're in a city, you don't have a million in LA, you don't have a million farmers and a million people who are like, making shoes. Everybody's not like, growing their own food and stuff like that. You got engineers and all they do is do one thing very well. And of course, if you do one thing very well, you can do it better, faster, and cheaper than the guy next to you. That's the whole point, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
So now, as things develop, you can afford to have someone go buy your groceries. You know, I mean, you can have Uber drive you around because you're specializing and you're bringing more income per unit. You're actually becoming a manufacturer yourself with your skill sets. Now, you leverage that and expand it out to the size of a city, right? Every individual component would be cheaper, and therefore the value of that lifestyle would then be cheaper overall.
Mhm.
But I've noticed that things end up costing more, and you could say, well, when you live in the country, you don't have as much, you're not driving around in a Ferrari or something like that. But the truth is I can live a better life here because I'm outside that network of taxation that is perpetual
That's
because every city, every county, everywhere there's taxes and taxes and fees and fees. So you
well
go down to the
that's
hill.
that's the
Go
whole
ahead.
reason I moved away. I was
Mhm.
sitting there. My parents got tired of getting taxed and they couldn't afford to retire. So they looked at, they were getting ready to retire. They were in their late 50s and they were looking at a place to retire. And they asked me if I wanted to throw my stuff in and move to New Mexico. And I looked at the state income rate, and at the time it was 3%. And they just raised the income tax rate on California from like 7 to 14 or whatever it is now. And I'm like, so you're telling me I can get 11% raise in wages just by moving to New Mexico? And I was a truck driver, so I didn't care. I work at the same company, get 11% more pay, you know, just the lack of taxation. And you got, I don't think that politicians understand that their decisions have consequences. I mean, I love California. I was born, raised there. I think it's a beautiful state. I love going back, but they've even made it to where you can't afford to visit. I mean, yeah, and then the fuel there is horrible. But anyway, they've priced everything out of it, and then the bureaucracy to do it. Like the reason those oil companies are leaving is they're going to get fined every day that they don't have enough fuel capacity,
Mhm.
after a certain date. But it's going to take them 4 years to get through the environmental impact reports and all the different bureaucracy to get their tanks built. Here in New Mexico, we have a data center going down here in Santa Teresa that was supposed to go into California. And they said they want to build it here because they could have it up and going in under a year, and it would take them 4 years to get the permits to do it in California.
Mhm.
So we
Yep.
get to have
Permitting.
2,200 jobs come to New Mexico. So that, because California is just too much of a bureaucracy.
Well, look at the Palisades. Place burned
Yeah.
down. I mean, it
They
burned
saw,
all that, and those were wealthy people in wealthy houses, and they can't get permits. They can't rebuild. I mean, they've got money, they've got insurance money coming in, and they want to. And then a lot of them lost everything because Gavin Newsom signed an order that required the insurance companies uh, to cover certain things. So the insurance company said, "Well, we can't do that because it's going to put rights out of the market." And he said, "Well, you got to do it anyway." So they said, "Okay, well, we'll just leave the state." And a couple months
yeah.
before the fire, a bunch of people just got notices that their fire insurance was canceled. So they had no insurance when their house burned down. Everything in it gone.
Yeah, because they didn't have time to transfer.
Yeah, it
And
was a
then
small window,
the
and he
thing that
won't.
blew
He won't
my
even take. He won't even take responsibility for it.
Oh, he never
You
will.
want
oh
you want that guy president? Doesn't take
he,
responsibility for any of his failures, massive failures. You know.
like horribly massive failures.
The
Yeah.
rail, the
That
California
railroad,
He-
rail.
high speed
yeah.
rail authority. Yeah.
Hmm.
What is it? 110 miles or something? And they've spent what $130 billion on it, and they don't have a mile of track down. It's all rail bed.
Not one section of it is operational,
The
and
thing
and
I
it,
love is
yeah,
is
when you look up boondoggle, it's got a picture of California high speed rail.
here's the thing that I find interesting is every time every time you buy a gallon of gas, I think it's what do they say? 5 cents of every gallon of gas you buy goes to fund that railroad
Oh,
and build.
it's yeah,
Yeah,
that okay. Look up the map, okay, and they wanted to go through the Central Valley up to San Francisco, and and here's the thing: is high speed rail great? Okay, one place you do not want to put high speed rail, someplace with high seismic activity. You got a 200-mile-an-hour train, and you have a 6.5. You got thousands of people who are just
dead.
no longer alive. Okay, it's
The
crazy.
last
Okay,
ride of
so
their life.
oh yeah, it'll be fun, but it'll be the last one you ever have, right?
They're going to
Hmm.
go from
So,
It's 171 miles between Merced and Bakersfield. Like,
so yeah, yeah,
who
but
wants to go fast between those two places?
the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put in stops,
Well, I understand.
and you got to the thing doesn't go from 0 to 200, and I mean it takes miles to get up that speed, and then it takes miles to slow down. And when you've got major cities in between, that might make sense, but then you have to have a reason for them to commute. And the reason that people commute is usually not for work anymore. Japan, who has a great high speed rail, and some places in Europe have great high speed rail because you go from rural, dense cities that are not practical for manufacturing or certain types of jobs, and you have large numbers of people who commute for specific reasons. California's not that way. We put the things we need where we want to live.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
look at the LA basin, it's like everything's within 15 miles of each other. If they just fix the highway system in LA, it'd be wonderful, you know. But you can't lay a half mile of highway in LA without costing $40 billion because of the right of ways.
Oh, here I got the
And
map for you guys. Yeah.
they put in the 710. They put in the the toll for the 710, and that has paid itself off 100 times over. I'm never going to take that away because now it's a revenue stream. So we
Yes,
pay
sir.
for it. We pay for it. We pay for it. Yeah,
Why didn't they
and you're
just go
gonna
straight up through here where the railroad already goes?
well the
That doesn't.
Amtrak. If you've taken Amtrak to San Diego, which I have,
That yeah,
you got
that's pretty cool.
you got to drive down to San Luis, get it on there because they still haven't fixed the grade track where it comes up the grade,
Oh,
so you
really?
can't go. Yeah, you have to take a bus. I mean, if they were going to fix something, so it takes a little longer. If trains are so necessary, why don't they fix the one they already have? Right? Okay, a couple $1 million and they fix the track and you go up the grade. Yeah, it's going to take you a little longer, but yeah, but you still you have to drive down to San Luis. That's 70 minutes. You have to park. Then
Oh,
you
sorry.
get on the train, and then you go down to San Diego. It takes you longer to get down there than if you drove because it's got to stop. It's got to wait for people to get off. People get on.
Yeah.
It.
Oh, no
This is the
shit.
same.
There's no service between San Luis Obispo and wow. I've ridden that train between the 2 points all the time. I used to because I
As a
was a rail
Starlight.
fan.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
they they got rid of it because it became they couldn't fix it, and they said, "Well, we'll just abandon it." I mean, they still
Oh,
can travel it, but it's not it's not open. But the crazy thing is, it's like people don't realize. Like in New York, you get on the subway, right? People live in an apartment, and then they walk down 14, 15, 20 flights of stairs. They walk, you know, quarter mile to a subway station. They go down underground. They wait. Then their train comes. They get on that train. They get on it for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. They go 15 blocks, and then they pop out, and then they go to work. And that's the way millions of people live. And I go, well, I get in my car at my house, start the car, drive 15 blocks, and park and shut the car off. You don't have to have this elaborate underground subway system to move people 15 blocks. There's so much more um, better ways of doing it. But in New York, I think they're all just suffering from some sort of derangement syndrome where they think that the way they're doing it is somehow better than any other way in the world. And if one more person says, I think New York's the greatest city in the world,
Mhm.
I'm going to flip. They've never been anywhere. I don't think they've ever been out of New York, you know? I mean,
my friend, his parents lived there. We were driving truck together, and he moved back to upstate New York, and he lived out here in New Mexico for probably 10 years. And he goes, man, all I want to do is come back to New York the whole entire time. And Randy's like, dude, I forgot how nice it was to be in open, clean air where not everyone's sitting on top of you. And, it's just like this. What was I thinking coming back to this hell?
if I had the
And
opportunity and I had the money, I would redesign New York, right? In a place with better climate, better view, better, weather, better, just find the perfect place for it and say, okay, we're going to build it so that I don't know how many people live in New York, 14 million or some crazy amount.
Um, New York
you know,
City.
and just make it livable. But I mean, you've got people who are screaming about, I mean, the rats, and you've got dead bodies popping up out of the sewers, and you know, you got, I mean, they're like, "It's the greatest place in the world to live," and I go, you go into,
8.48 million.
yeah,
So
it's
8
like
million. Yeah.
8 million people live in that small area,
And it
Lane
never
Borough,
shuts down.
never shut.
24/7, 365. I used to
Yeah,
be going in and out of there when I was grade school. My dad was a pastor out in New Jersey, and we go into New York City a lot and stuff, and it was pretty crazy fun and stuff. Yet back then, people were on top of the other people. People with
yeah,
spiked hair. That was a big thing back in the 80s.
there you go, right there. Well, I mean, it's. I grew up in LA, um, eh, when you live in a densely populated area, like I said, it's okay, but the systems that they use to perpetuate those systems, they got more police per capita than anywhere I think in the world, but they also have you know, a statistic I heard that you are you're almost 100%. If you're born and raised in New York, you have a 100% likelihood of being mugged at some time in your life. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
I just, if I live anywhere else in the nation, that statistic goes down. Yeah. But you have the highest per capita of police, and I believe that under Giuliani, you probably had a 0% chance of being mugged, because you mug someone, the police would come and get you and put you in jail, and you didn't mug anybody else. Right.
Hmm.
But now
Hmm.
they let them out. And so it's like, what's the point of having all these police? Police are frustrated too. They want to get the bad guys, but they're just, wokeness and all that other stuff. So I don't know. It's just, I
Well,
think, I think we're fed up.
here here in Las Cruces, one thing that's interesting is our crime rate since 20th of this year is down like 30%. And then the police was saying that the problem we have is the judges are letting the criminals out. He came straight up on the news and said that this whole like hug a thug crap is just getting old.
Oh, yeah, thank
we keep arresting them and they keep kicking them out. It's just, well, I don't know what else to call it other than hug a thug, because
And
it's like,
then the bigger
yeah.
one here in where I live is police officers were pulling people over for DWI type stuff. And you say,
Oh yeah.
hey, you can either pay us or pay this lawyer, or you got to go to jail. And they would
Uh-huh.
pay the lawyer, write a check
Well,
out, right? Easy peasy, nice and easy. You'll kick them out.
they wouldn't show
They're on
up
the
to,
way.
yeah.
And it was a scheme. And there's a consensus that it went all the way up to the chief of the police. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
They were
Colonel.
all getting kickbacks and stuff, and they were all making money off of this. And he was like, "Oh, well, how does this benefit society when the officers themselves are saying, hey, I'm not getting paid enough. This is screwed up. Well, why don't I just make some money on the side? Why don't I just pull this
Mhm.
Ponzi scheme or whatever you want to call it? And it's going to be golden because who's going to check on it?"
Well,
There,
and that's
there's
where
only,
that's where we come in. That's where we come in as citizens. We have to be more aware. I think 50 years ago, people were a little bit more in tune, and when something didn't seem right, when there was corruption, they got together with their neighbors and they went down and they complained about it. Say, "You get rid of that guy. He's no good." And now we've gotten to the point where, well, do you have proof? Do you have videotape? Do you have videotape of him saying that videotape is authenticated? Do you have videotape? Do you have a signed affidavit saying that the videotape of him doing this corrupt act is actually, you know, he's admitting to it? And it's so hard to convict anybody. You look at what's been happening with all the people surrounding Trump's indictments. I mean, he was indicted, he was convicted, he was harassed. They 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 raided Mar-a-Lago. I mean,
Went through
they
the
he Chuck Adam Schiff lied, multiple times on television, and he became a senator. He got promoted.
Yeah.
So, we have to stand up and go, "This is no longer acceptable," We're law-abiding citizens, but, being a man of faith, I think the pastors need to start preaching from the pulpit how us it's the citizenry, it's their duty to stand up for what's right,
Hmm.
you know? If we were in another country and we just said, "We're just gonna stand by and watch them, do horrific acts," we're not standing by our faith. But here, this is our country, and we have not only protections under the law, but we have a duty, as men of faith to do the right thing, regardless of what the consequences will be. I'd rather go to jail, um, than to watch someone suffer under the hand of oppression. It's just not right.
Yeah, we moved away
so
from the Micah 6:8.
Yep. Yep.
We're 180, and what happens is those who want to cheat, steal, and destroy, they win. And
Yeah.
the pulpits are definitely on the side of the cheat, steal, and them winning, than standing up and saying what possibly can get them into trouble and what possibly can get them kicked out or whatever it is, and they're willing to go along to get along. And I saw that a lot during COVID.
Yeah. 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 No, we had only a couple pastors, in town that refused to shut down, and I go, those were the men of conviction who said, "You know what? You're telling me that I can't assemble and pray, which are constitutionally protected. And even if it wasn't constitutionally protected, and you were in China or you were in, Germany, or you were in any other country where they said, I'm sorry, this is against the law. Are you going to go, well, the Bible tells me to do something, but I'm going to go along with the law because it trumps God? No, you're
well then
supposed, yeah,
uh, that's the
no,
problem I've been having with the religion I was raised in is the whole religion just gave in. And I'm like, what happened to we are Christian soldiers, warriors standing for what's right? And it really I had to reevaluate my own internal like faith, which has actually been good because I've found a
yeah,
lot better. Um, you know, but it was hard during that time. A lot of
yeah.
things came under assault at one time.
Yeah, yeah. COVID was an eye opener for a lot of people, and you got to go. Okay, what is religion? Religion is your faith acted out.
Hmm.
Okay, and so people say, "Oh, I don't believe in religion," and I go, "Really? And what do you do about that? How how do you live your beliefs?" Well, I'll ask him any belief. Even an atheist is living out their religion, right? So people put things into organized religion and my own personal religion. I go, all organized religion is just people who have similar faith and act out their faith in similar ways, right? Why do you think we have so many churches? you know um so you're supposed to work out your own faith in fear and trembling, right? And you're supposed to um pray and be quiet and silent and be with God in those quiet moments in your time and gain guidance. I just watched the movie David. Just came out. Have you seen that movie yet?
No, I've heard about it though.
I haven't
Highly,
seen it.
Angel
highly recommend.
Studios.
It's a great movie. It was fantastic. Took the
Yeah,
kids
I'm a
and
member of
wife.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, watch it. It is a really good movie. They did a really good job. It's Disney without all the woke stuff. you know and I was really impressed with it because it had the feel of a Disney movie without the new woke stuff.
Yeah.
So I think Angel Studios is going to do some great work. But you just work out your faith, figure out what you believe. We had the great enlightenment. We've had over the years, we now live in a wonderful time. We have most people are literate, we can read and write, right? And that is a wonderful thing in and of itself. We can read the word for ourselves and make our own decisions. We can research it. We have the other
Mhm.
fingertips. Every phone has every scripture, every, you can look up the Dead Sea Scrolls in Google in 5 minutes, right? And so we have no reason to say, well, I didn't know. I didn't want to find out. So we can look, we can read, we can discern, we can talk to, there's apps where you can push a button and a pastor will pop up and minister to you right there. Right.
Yep.
So, I'm talking with him right now, so
Yeah,
there's
the
no
ostrich in the
excuse.
sand, people just wanna put their head in the sand and just be like, "I didn't know anything," because it's the easy out, instead of going down into the deep night of the soul and figuring out, "Who is this God, and how do I interact with him, and who am I? What does he
Yeah.
think of me?" And going down those roads, it's hard, it's difficult. Not a lot of people wanna do it because we want the Taco Bell, drive-through, fast, easy, my way,
Yeah.
right away, BK.
Yep, there you go. I love DK, by the way.
I found the
Okay.
one person
No,
who still
I'm
likes
thinking
them.
of
Okay.
DQ. I love DQ.
Oh,
Oh, I was just
DQ,
say,
that's a different story.
There you go,
BK?
man.
Eh, DQ, can you do life without DQ every once in a while?
I
No,
know. There you go.
no.
have
No,
you seen
yeah,
the
keep
Dr.
somebody else
Fauci
out.
interview on Angel Studios? The
No, no.
documentary? Oh my gosh, that is
He's an evil man. He's an evil man. You know, he knew way more than what he was saying and didn't care. The COVID destruction that happened, and he was also the head of the AIDS problem. Do you know
yeah.
why
Yes, he
we
He
have a
was.
talk
lot of
about this.
problems? Oh my gosh! Kids kids were kids were getting AIDS due to transfusions, and because AIDS was transmitted mostly through gay sex, right? Um, they were
Well,
worried that it was going to cause an undue oppression and on certain groups of people. So they said, "Well, we're going to make it so that you can't tell other students or other parents that this child has this disease. There's no other disease like that."
well, did you hear how he was involved in getting the AIDS out into the thing? They got a group of orangutans from he was doing that's testing animal testing for the vaccine for polio in Africa. And the orangutans that they were, or the apes that they were working with there, had this unknown virus in their blood that they were testing
Oh,
over there because they couldn't test over here in the United States because they were afraid the polio would get out. And that is
hmm.
where they found the AIDS virus in those monkeys over in Africa. And that's how they released it into the population. It's through a site. He was directly involved
Oh,
in that.
I
So,
I'd never heard that. From what I remember, I remember it was out of
well,
Africa,
mm-hmm.
but it was mainly among very promiscuous men in tribal regions of Africa, and it became an epidemic. But it's always been sexually transmitted disease, and it was bloodborne. And of course, back in the day, they didn't know to test for it, so they were doing transfusions, and people would go in and give blood, and they'd have AIDS, and then they'd give it to some poor kid, and this kid's now dying of it. So the problem that I had was that they didn't know enough about it. At the time, they were worried that it was, you could touch something and get it. But at the same time, they knew that it was mainly transmitted in gay communities, and they didn't want it to get out that, people were going to freak out and start shutting down these gay communities. They couldn't have that, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
they said, "Well, we're not gonna tell people. You can't tell people if you have it." They've gone as so far as a California, there's a law that says you don't have to tell someone you're positive.
Hmm,
So you can knowingly have unprotected, intercourse and transmit this, and
no
there's no legal
recourse.
repercussion, which is insane because it's and in California, of course, we've got, transgenderism. There's a person that just came out today on JP Sears did an interview or a review of I think it's an English person who was rapidly transitioned so fast they really didn't have time to think about it and really get the information they needed. And now they're, sans penis and sitting here going, what the heck did I do to myself?
What I find interesting
And they can't go
is
back.
the
Nope,
thing I
there's no
find
return.
interesting is if you do a thought experiment, what the liberals can't get done in the womb with ending children's lives, they're doing after the womb by convincing them they're boys or girls, and then they're basically convincing these people to castrate their children, and it's it's just an insanity. I mean that's just what the way I look at it. I mean it's probably wrong to say that, but
Well, I, I tend to think that people do things believing that they're doing the right thing.
well, look
So
at what Elon
surely
Musk
very
said about his
few
son.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that what they do is they misunderstand what compassion is. Compassion is, you know, it's- you tell someone the truth, it might hurt their feelings, but you tell someone a lie, like a kid finds out, hey, is Santa Claus real? Well, let's dress dad up like Santa Claus and he'll walk through the house and we'll all go, there he is, to keep the mystique going. And everybody
Yeah,
thinks they think that that's compassionate because you're not hurting the kid's feelings. But then when the kid finds out that dad was just dressed up like Santa Claus, it destroys trust. How can I ever trust my mom and my dad, when they just did this elaborate, thing. No wonder we have so many conspiracy theorists in the world. It started
yeah,
when they were, little kids and being told Santa's, on the roof.
Well, it's
So,
just this, but I can understand compassion. The thing that frustrates me is this
it's crazy.
compassion and understanding goes into so many other facets of our lives. And well, how many times you have to be convicted of a felony before you actually serve some time in prison? I mean, well, we should be compassionate, give them we had a guy here that stabbed a cop and killed a cop, and he'd been convicted of, he'd had 9 felonies convictions, and he had I think like 15 misdemeanor convictions, and with all that felony stuff he was still out on the street because we got to be compassionate and give him another chance. Well, at some point we need to start putting people in jail, and then this idea that maybe because I was raised by a prison guard that you can rehabilitate people. Prison is punishment. We put them in there because they did bad things. You can give them the ability to be rehabilitated, but you can't force it on them.
Well,
And it's just,
the conceptual difference between jail, prison, and penitentiary.
oh, curious. I know what mine
Uh,
is.
a jail is a holding place for someone who's not been tried and convicted.
hmm
So, the police go out, they catch someone, they bring him to jail. It's a holding cell. It's a place where he's held to wait for an arraignment and wait for sentencing, right? Then once he's sentenced, he goes to prison. And worldwide, prisons have been around for centuries. Paul was spent time in prison, right? So these were prisons. Now, prisons were just, we don't like you. You did something we don't like. Go rot here, and you can't get out. Take away
hmm
your freedom, right? We might feed you, we'll beat you every now and then, but prisons were a bad place to go. The US did something different. And I'm not sure if it started in the US, but
oh,
we used to
the
call them
Pennsylvania,
penitentiary.
since because it's the Pennsylvania system called the
Is it the
penitentiary.
okay? A
They did
penitentiary, because they were
yeah,
they were rehabilitation centers. You were
they
supposed
had to
to
go in, and
do your
the f-
pay your
the
penance.
first penitentiary, because it's the Pennsylvania system, coming from the Pennsylvania Dutch, and it was they had to go in and had total silence, and they had to go in and be quiet, and they handled them all individually. It was like you did something wrong and you were immediately put in solitary confinement. And they found that that system actually caused insanity because there was no humans are a social creature, and the lack of social interaction actually caused them to go insane and actually
Well,
made it
they
worse.
probably did it wrong. They
Yeah.
they did it wrong, but the idea behind the penitentiary system was to pay your penance, was to sit with your, and of course, you put someone in solitary confinement, they're gonna go crazy, but the idea was you would sit and you would pray. In fact, one of the prisons penitentiaries actually had no windows, it only had a skylight, and it was to force the prisoners to look up to God. But the
Mhm.
idea behind it was that you had scripture, you had people praying with
Mhm.
you, people ministering to you, talking about the problem, what you did wrong, and how to live a godly life, and rehabilitation, and getting on the path to being a good person in life was the goal. And we've had there's some people who will never be rehabilitated, mentally
Yeah.
ill, people who are, just rotten to the core. And then there are people who just they grew up in a bad situation. They don't know any better. And if we can get those people young enough, right, you can turn them around. Once you get into your 30, I mean, you're done. It's very hard. But I have seen Christian ministries go into like CMC and find these guys, these older men who have had really rough lives, and you see it all over the place. God transforms people. It's actually He who
Yeah.
does it, the work, not us. But you see they'll go in and these people will be transformed. And now you got guys got tatted up, neck tattoos, skull on their forehead, right? And they're preaching the gospel on the street corner. And it's a wonderful thing to see. But the idea has to be, how do we rehabilitate? How do we bring people back? How do we redeem people? Because if we can't redeem the worst of the worst, what is my why should I be redeemed if God didn't come to redeem us all, right?
Mhm.
So we may be the chosen, but He wants every one of us. Not one sheep is to go stray. That's my philosophy.
Well, look at that. You're 100% correct. Penance.
You all
Not that
right.
I'm doing that, I'm just, like, looking it up. Eastern State Penitentiary was the first system to adopt it in 1829.
18. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
wow.
but you remember, Obama said we're not a Christian nation.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
every
you
line
know
of the Constitution was debated with scripture in hand. If it didn't line up with scripture, they kicked it out. So, I don't know how you can have and I believe that it was divinely inspired and that God had his hand on this nation from its beginning, and we are in his providence. And without staying close to that biblical principle, we're God's not leaving us, we're leaving God,
Yep.
you know. Yeah.
damn, they used that prison for a long time. 1829 through set 1971. That's an
Yeah.
old prison, man.
There you go.
Eastern State Penitentiary.
Don't
I'm
build them
sorry.
like they used to.
They call it the castle. Like, dude, it is no joke. It looks like a castle. Anyways, sorry, ADD moment.
No
So,
problem. No
well,
problem.
we've got 2.5 hours. Do you think we're ready to keep pontificating, or do we want to or call it?
I'm gonna call it because I'm getting tired. I gotta get home and get to bed and do
Yeah.
the whole thing tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I gotta go edit some of the video from some of the stuff I said, I guess. So,
yeah.
All right.
So this thing, I guess you upload it and AI kind of edits it, or do you have
uh,
to do it?
it does a lot of it edit manually, but I can go through and pick it out. It's pretty cool. It's a really neat program. Like, yeah, yeah, and then it'll go through and analyze the whole entire video and pull out segments, the shorts for me, and it'll put it all together.
There you
and
go.
then it'll label them, and then it'll give you like they'll take that short and compare it to the algorithm and tell you which one's more likely to be
Probably
successful.
nothing I said goes viral. I'll be
Soon to be
people talk.
what is
Yeah.
it? Former state congressman candidate Jason.
What do you really believe?
Yeah.
Cut all these little segments out, you know.
No, it
We
was
thought
we
Nick
hit a
Fuentes, Nick, what was his name? Nick. That's a
Fuentes.
kid. Fuentes, yeah. We thought he was bad. Yeah.
Well,
I
did you
don't
see
know.
I put a video out called "Could Be America's Next Hitler," and it was us talking about it. I put a clip.
I think we need to give everybody a little bit of free reign and stop nitpicking and picking out a segment. Because, I mean, here's three guys. We're just talking and we're kind of working out stuff. And, if I said some statistic and it was off, they're going to, I mean, when I was running for Congress, they would have picked that out and they would have thrown it out there and said, look, this guy doesn't know anything, And most statistics are easily picked out of, you Google them and it's fine. But, are we all supposed to be perfect? No, I don't think we can be perfect.
My favorite statistic is, did you know that 78% of all statistics are made up on the spot?
I did. I did.
Yeah, I
It's
made
actually
that
92 though. What do you think, Corey? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking I'm ready to go to bed.
All right, gentlemen. If you
I'm winding
if y'all
down.
made it this far, we're gonna link any books talked about in the video down in the notes. So look for the links to the books in the notes, and then if you could go by and look at we got the Stop Dating Witches T-shirt up on the old website there. That's one of the Corey's favorite things. So, and then
Mm,
we have
I checked out.
we have a shirt up now that says "I know the Dutch know." So
I know the Dutch. I love it. I love it. I like the artwork. It looks very kind of cool. Was that where did you get that? Did you have AI make that or
yeah, it was generated by AI.
yeah,
Because
it kind of draws you in, you see it and you're like, oh, I gotta click on that. But it's hard to find, you know.
trying to get the analytics up has been interesting.
Yeah. Maybe make
Well,
an acronym of that's easy to remember.
well, that's the reason we turned it in. It's called the company we call it is Roads and Rabbit Holes Productions. So kind of combine everything together. Because
That's definitely a rabbit hole. You definitely found
yes,
plenty
it
of
is.
well,
it was fun.
There's no one focus. It's a rabbit hole. All righty.
Cody and I used to have conversations like this all the time.
This is actually a short converse. Yeah, this is one of the short ones. I think the longest one we did was like 4 hours one time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to call it there.
God bless you guys. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Too.
In honor and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. That is. Holler it.